see what says Custer County, but there seems to be.
Good evening. This is June 17th, 2024. The time is now 5:36 p.m. I'm Kevin Day, Chair of the Custer County Board of Commissioners, and I will call this workshop to order. If you do have cell phones, I would ask that you silence them at this time, please. Okay, if you could join us for the pledge and the invocation. Steve. Thanks.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Steve, thank you.
Why did
Please stand for the invocation.
Okay.
Everybody sits first. Get some exercise. Dear Lord, we just pray and thank you for giving us this great country to live in, and for this county, and for the beautiful mountains, all the moisture that we've gotten here lately, for the green that we see all the way up to the top. Lord, we just thank you for this day, and we thank you for the people that are taking part in this meeting to learn about what the three presenters have to bring to us. Lord, I just pray, Lord, that you'd be with us and you give us wisdom and knowledge and that you pour your blessing out over us. I pray these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. I'll kick us off tonight. We do have three speakers. Tonight. Lucas alluded to that. We do have Matt Crane from the Colorado County Clerks Association. He's the executive director. We have Chris Beal, the Deputy Secretary of State for Colorado. And we have Carly, is it Copps? Coppas. Okay, thank you for that. The Weld County Clerk and Recorder. And we thank you guys for being with us here tonight. I'd also like to say I really appreciate how well the meeting went the last time that we had it, and I'm looking forward to tonight's meeting being the same. And thank you all for being here. I will turn it over now to our presenters, and they may or may not be in the same order as what I listed them. So share the screen here.
Sure. Should I use this microphone or?
Yes. Might have to pull forward. There you go.
Chairman, Commissioners, Sheriff, everyone, speak up.
Might have to hold that one in pretty close.
Yeah, hold it real close to that.
Is that better? Yeah, I'll just eat the microphone. My name is Chris Beal. I'm the Deputy Secretary of State. Gorgeous drive coming down. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the blessing. I am here on behalf of Secretary Griswold. Yes, on cue. There we go. To talk about our elections process, and to answer questions as best I can. Just to say a little word about myself, I'm a little older. Before I had this gig, I was at the Attorney General's office. I was the Deputy Attorney General under Phil Weiser for 3 years. And before that, I was a lawyer in private practice, practicing here in Colorado, but also in New Mexico and New York. I stopped shuttling back and forth, had a million-miler line to prove it. But I am very happy to be in service to y'all. I believe that I am more public servant. I know what the law, the rules, the secretary of government tell them to do, and you tell them what to do through your votes. And I am here to talk about how we get those votes, how we count them, and how you can have confidence in them. But before I get to the process, I wanted to show you some results from the survey that University of Colorado's professors do every other year, every 2 years, about various attitudes. But this question is a regular question in the survey, and this comes from the survey they did of 800 Colorado residents in December of last year, 2023. On the 2 questions that I have up on the board, you can see a distinct difference in terms of confidence in how the national election will be run versus the state election, and between respondents who identify themselves as either Republican or Democratic and unaffiliated. This divide between Republican-affiliated respondents and Democratic-affiliated respondents has been growing and is more pronounced now. We can talk about why that is, but I live today, most Republican-affiliated voters don't have a lot of confidence in me or my staff. The Department of State in the Secretary of State's office has 155 staffers. There are about 40 people in our elections division. Most people are surprised to hear that the largest number of employees is in our IT department, because we run the technology that is the score or registration system. We run the technology that is the business side of our. We register all the businesses in Colorado. We build the software to do that. In any event, I'm very proud of my staff, and I think they do a great job, and I would like to prove that to you. I'm here to talk about elections. Secretary of State's office does a lot of things. I mentioned businesses. We also do charities. We also do notaries public. We do durable medical equipment.
Could you come to the center to do that global line?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am. I will.
Thank you.
I'll do that. Is that better? Let me give you a line of sight. Anyway, I'm here to talk about elections, and I'm here to try to give you some degree of assurance about the reliability of our elections. And we look at the reliability issue from the end to end, from the beginning of voter registration all the way to the end of canvass, everything in between. And I will try to move quickly, but If there are any questions, I'm happy to take questions. There just is quite a lot. Let's start as a lawyer. I always have to start with our Constitution. Our Constitution creates the balance that our office and clerks are engaged in trying to maintain. It's the balance between openness, access to the vote, and security, confidence, purity in the vote. So Article 2 is our Bill of Rights in the state constitution, and it says all elections shall be free and open, and no power, civil or military, shall at any time prevent the free exercise of the right of suffrage. Colorado is the first state to give the vote to women. Wyoming was first, but Wyoming was not a state when it did. So we were the first state. Article 7 is our elections article within the Constitution. In section 11, it speaks to the purity of elections. Now, at the time that this was enacted in 1876, purity of the election meant only white folk. We read it today to mean something else. We read it to be the security of the election process, and only eligible citizen, resident, and age. Those are the three eligibility requirements to vote in Colorado. You must be 18. We register kids who are not yet 18, but they are not eligible to vote. We pre-register them. And despite what you may have heard, we do not register illegal, undocumented, non-citizens. I will speak to how that works. And you must be a resident of the county where you, the address that you give the clerk. Where is Kelly? Kelly's over there. Kelly does a fabulous job, and if I do nothing tonight, I want to convince you that her staff and her elections are things that you can trust. I hope that I can convince you about the state, but for the county, you should. I mentioned that it starts with voter registration. In Colorado, we are subject to the federal statutes that control elections. There are two important federal statutes, the voter statute, it was passed in 1993, and then the Help America Vote Act, which was passed in I don't have the date, but I think it was 2002. Thank you, Carly. The motor voter statute created the system that we use today of using the DMV, motor vehicle records, as the basis of voter registration. We get voter registration from lots of different sources, but DMV is where most everybody is registered to vote. When they have the transaction at the counter, and today in Colorado, because we have real ID driver's licenses, you must present two forms of identification, and those forms of identification must prove that you are a citizen. And if you do not prove that you are a citizen, your driver's license has a notation in the system and on the face of the driver's license that it is a non-citizen driver's license. That is important because the data that we get to register folks to vote comes from the DMV. And DMV's data tells us whether the person has verified their citizenship. If they have not, we do not send those people to Kelly's office, where Kelly completes the voter registration process. Help America Vote is important for the second part of this, which is how we cancel people. So when someone moves, you would expect that their voter registration has disappeared. It does not, because of this federal statute. The federal statute prevents Kelly and us from canceling a registration unless the person voluntarily cancels their registration, unless the person goes online to our Go Colorado website and says, I moved, or fills out a form and sends it to Kelly and says, please cancel my registration. If they don't do those things, and Kelly gets return mail, the voter is listed as inactive. There are three categories We have active registered voters. We have pre-registered voters, 16, 17, not yet eligible to vote, but will be registered when they become. And inactive voters, registered voters. They remain registered because under the federal statute, we are not allowed to cancel them. We must wait 2 general election cycles before Kelly can cancel that registration. But we mark them, Kelly marks them, as inactive. And no inactive voter gets a ballot. No inactive voter gets a ballot. Only active voters are sent ballots. If the ballot is sent to an active voter and the voter has moved, what happens? Comes back to Kelly and is marked as inactive. The return ballot turns that voter from active to inactive. The voter must then come in and correct their record, demonstrate either that they really do live at that address and they have to prove it, or provide the new address where they are, and then they could be issued a ballot. But we only issue ballots to active voters. In order to become an active voter, if you're inactive, you have to correct your record. That makes you active. I mentioned that we get information from DMV. We also get information from CDPHE, Public Health and Environment, for death records. We also get death information from Social Security Administration, and we get Department of Corrections, because in Colorado, individuals who are incarcerated in a public institution for a felony are not eligible to vote. They remain registered, but they are not eligible to vote. If you are in county lockup and you are not convicted of a felony, you are eligible to vote. And the legislature this past session enacted a provision that requires every county to provide up to 6 hours of voting time in the county lockup for those individuals who are eligible, who are citizens, who are over 18, who reside in the county, and are not convicted a certain time for a felony. If they're pre-trial, they get a vote. If they're there on a conviction for a misdemeanor, they get a vote. If they're there for a felony, they don't get a vote. We get information from an organization that you may have heard about called ERIC, but Electronic Registration Information Center, which is a coalition of states. Colorado was one of the founding members of ERIC, way back in Secretary Dessler's administration. Colorado joined together with other states because we think it's a good idea to find out if someone has voted in another state and our state. And that's what ERIC allows us to do. We have a case that just got completed in Arizona of the person who voted in Colorado and in Arizona. They moved to Arizona, they're still voting in Colorado, cases in Arizona. Person was convicted.
Hold it close to him.
Oh, is that better? Sorry.
We're having a little trouble hearing you
They're not
online.
being able to hear.
Oh, that sounds.
There's a lot of people out there.
There we go. I'll try. I want to show you the trajectory of voter registration in Colorado. The bars are statewide. The line is Custer County. You can see that in 2010, Custer County was just below 3,000 active registered voters. And in 2020, or today, Custer County is at 4,465, although I think probably this was data as of June 1, and in the run up to an election, we get more people registering to vote. So you're probably a little bit higher than that. But what I wanted to illustrate is the shape. Colorado and Custer County's registration voters have been going up. There are more of you. There are more of you in Custer County, and there are more of you in the state. In the state, we are up to 3,000. My vision is terrible. 3,899,000
and change as of June 1. We believe that by November 5 for the general election, the state's active registered voter population would be more than 4 million. The census gives Colorado, as of 2020, 6.5 million, but we still have been adding population. In any event, this is what Custer County's partisan affiliation looks like. The Downs haven't been doing well, they hovered. Was 17.3% in 2010. Today it's down less than, no, it's not less than 10%, it's 10.2%. The big news, the big story in Colorado has been the growth of unaffiliated voters. And that's the purple line, and the purple line is going up. And by November 5, in Colorado, in Custer County, unaffiliated voters will outnumber Republican voters. That's just the trajectory of the way it's going to go. I believe that that will be the case in more than that. It's already the case statewide. I think Matt has a slide that states this. That there are more unaffiliated voters than either Republicans or Democrats. And by November 5, there will be a majority of the state will be unaffiliated. So right now, the voter registration for the state is about 48.7% unaffiliated.
When did we ask questions?
They are going to present, and then there will be a question and answer with the commissioners, and then you were provided with questionnaires that you could turn in for us to ask those questions. Yes.
Can you put more than one question?
You may.
And you give it to you guys to ask them?
Yes.
Well, my only point was by the election in November, the majority of the state, more than 50%, will be unaffiliated. There are interesting theories about why this is. Matt's going to speak to that, so I won't steal his thunder. This is the partisan distribution today in Custer County compared to the state. Custer County is on the right, and you can see that the unaffiliated percentage is 44%. Republicans are 45%. In the state, unaffiliated are 49 and change. And that has the purple shape of the pie on the state side will be growing. It used to be in 2000. Colorado was 33, 1/3. What has been growing at the expense of the parties has been the unaffiliated. This is the turnout in Custer County for 2020, 22, and 23. You did tremendous turnout in 2020, 90.45%. You've done tremendous turnout in all of your elections. You are above the state average of folks who are eligible and registered to vote who actually vote. The statewide number is less than this. In 2020, the number was 78, 79%. But you can see that in less contested races, there's lower turnout. The percentages after the turnout rate are how you have been voted. In 2020, 94% and change voted your mail ballot. The ballot that was sent to you was returned. Maybe you trusted the Postal Service, maybe you didn't. Most people in Colorado don't trust the Postal Service, and 84% of mail ballots are returned, not through the Postal Service, at drop boxes or at government offices. 5%, 5.85% in 2020 voted in person at voting centers. In Custer County, you had one, so you came and saw Kelly and her team. This is how you voted if you voted in person. So this is the count of active voters on election day, 4,020, 3,459, and 20 returned via mail ballots. There were 15 folks who voted in person at the polling center. 27 of them voted on paper. 188 of them voted on a ballot marking device, an electronic pad. It's not an iPad, but it's a pad. And I'm going to show you pictures of what they look like to get you the total amount of the vote. This is tiny in the grand scheme of things. In statewide, the number of voters who voted in person on paper in 2023, November coordinated election, was less than 1% of the vote voted on paper in person. Many times, folks who are voting on machines on the ballot marking device are doing so because they're visually impaired. The device will read the ballot to them, and they can mark, or it will also expand the ballot so you can see. So that's the results of voter registration and the results of voting. I want to talk now about machines that are required to be used. In Colorado, the legislature has required us and required governing bodies of any political subdivision to adopt a voting system to be used for tabulating votes. Voting system in this context of this statute is a defined term. The definition of it is an electromechanical machine device that computes the count of votes at the central count facility. So in 2013, when did we move to BOCCs? 13. We moved from precinct-based counting to central counting at the clerk's office, where all of the ballots, both mail and in person, are collected and tabulated. They're tabulated with machines that look like this. That is a Canon Canon G240. It's this thing that is a scanner that scans the paper. Colorado, nobody voted. All votes are on paper. We have paper for every ballot. Whether you voted, if you're a uniform overseas citizen, you voted electronically, but really not electronically, you uploaded, you downloaded your ballot, you marked your ballot, uploaded it back, you sent it through our system to Kelly. Kelly then prints your ballot, your sergeant in Korea, prints out the ballot, and a bipartisan team duplicates that ballot with markings onto a regular ballot, and that regular ballot is put into the stream that goes through the scan. We do we do our own certification of these machines. The United States Election Assistance Commission, UAC, certifies testing labs. The testing labs also test the software and the machines. In Custer County, Custer uses Dominion machines. Set it down. Everybody, ooh, thank you. There is another voting system vendor who I'm just used to people saying need an estimate. So that's all. All right. I will. There are two voting systems for it. Yeah, most people do. Most people voted on because I've been in these audiences. There's another voting system provider, Clear, different company, same system, not same system. A system that does the same thing. There are other voting system providers. During Secretary Williams' tenure, after Secretary Gessler, Secretary Williams and Secretary Williams' administration certified, both of those were Republicans, certified Dominion and Clear two other providers who have been certified in other states were not certified for Colorado because they didn't do what we needed to do. We need a central count process that we can audit, and the other providers didn't do that. When the software that has been tested is installed on the machines, it's done so through a trusted build. So there's a golden image of the software that's on the storage drive that we keep and that we match to the version that has been tested by the lab using something that's called hash value. The hash value is the confidence that we have that the software has not been changed. We install it in the machines and then we seal the machines. Kelly's team is responsible for inspecting all of the seals. And if any seal is broken, even by accident, even the tape became unglued, we have to take that machine out of commission, and we have to get a new machine for Kelly's team to use. All machines have to be sealed. In Pueblo, in 22, a gentleman went into a VSBC and pulled out the plug in the back of the printer. He also tried to insert something into that printer. We think he was trying to insert a USB. He was arrested, he was found, he was prosecuted. Ultimately, the charges against him were dismissed because the court found him incompetent, mentally incompetent, not sane. So we didn't get a conviction, but we caught it in our regular process. I wanted to mention something about drop boxes. The drop box here in Custer County is right out back of the county building. In other places, counties have more drop boxes. This is in Jefferson County. This is in the city of Wheat Ridge at Prospect Park. And the drop box is up there. This is a SWAT exercise. It's happening during an election. The SWAT team needed to practice. I use this photo simply to show there's a camera on the Dropbox, and we got the folks piling out of their vans to practice whatever they were to practice. This is in Adams County. This is a Adams County highway truck that has run into a drop box. Oh, you didn't get the sound that, but you could get it. So, drop boxes are, we say, virtually indestructible. This was a highway dump truck that ran into this drop box, knocked it over. If we kept the video playing, you'd see the two highway workers jumping out and trying to lift the box up. They couldn't, they had to get a forklift, the drop box was taken out of commission, but the drop box did not break open. The drop box did not spill out any pallets. In fact, it is, they are designed so that you cannot set something on fire inside them. You could squirt liquid in there. We do have instances where idiots put envelopes with white powder into the drop box. This did happen in Adams County, actually, and it has happened in other counties. That does contaminate the ballots. We separate the ballots, we decontaminate them, then we process the ballots. We in Colorado have had no instance of an actual harmful substance being used in this way, but people think they do. All ballots, from the moment that if you put your ballot into the drop box, there is a chain of custody of that ballot that is documented. When Kelly's team goes out back, and when Carly's team goes out and around to all of the drop boxes, to collect the ballots out of the box, and they're required to do it at certain intervals of time. As we get closer to the election day, those intervals will become shorter and we will collect more frequently. The team that goes must be a bipartisan team. We believe in mutual assured destruction, and we require that most election processes be done with a bipartisan team of Republican and Democrat to watch each other and to provide confidence. That team goes to the ballot, the drop box. They collect what's in the drop box into the bag that is sealed, that is locked. They bring the bag back to the central count facility, where they transfer the bag to another person, another bipartisan team, then logs it, and that bag will be maintained in custody and not opened until the time for tabulating ballots. The bag opens by a bipartisan team, the envelopes are taken out, and there is a process that I'm talking about for verification of ballots. But all along this process, and once it gets into the central count facility, it's under camera. There is a camera on the drop box. And there are logs. All of these logs are public records. The logs must be maintained for 25 months. Anybody who wants to can go look at the logs and find the chain of custody from when you dropped your ballot off. And I don't know how many of you all are enrolled in the ballot tracks system, but the ballot track system will tell you when your ballot has been mailed, when you dropped your ballot off, when your ballot is received, when it was processed and counted. I get a suspended person, I get emails and text messages. We in Colorado are a voter ID state. When you go to the BSBC, you must present a form of identification. That form of identification is not to prove where you live. It is only to prove who you are. It is confirmation of identity, and that's the reason why there are a lot of forms in the supplemental ID. When you return your ballot, we do not require you to make a photocopy of an ID and put it in the envelope. We instead require you to sign the ballot. Because when you register, when you got your driver's license, you sign for your driver's license. And if you've been voting for a while, you've been signing that ballot. We have pictures of every signature you have. And guess what? We compare the signature on the envelope to the signatures that we have on file. And you may say, oh, it's easy to force. This is an example of a ballot that was received and not processed. The signature on the envelope is here. They actually tried to scratch it out and then sign it again. The reference signature, the signatures that we have, and see, these are all the signatures that we have on file for this voter who is, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to read the name. It's too far away from my eyes. But these are all the signatures we have on file. These are the same thing. I can do that. The signatures are not even close. This is another example. This is the ballot that was submitted for a voter named Jack LaVane Young. These are the reference signatures. But this signature does not look like that signature. There's another example. Here's the ballot that was returned. This is the blow-up. You can see the signatures in that. The reason this happens is that frequently the people who are not the voter and who are signing the envelope are family members or spouses. Their mom who was signing for Johnny because Johnny's away at college, or they are husband signing for wife. And remarkably, Johnny probably can copy mom's signature really bad. But mom has a hard time doing Johnny's signature. Or it could be something else. Husband broke his wrist, is in a cast, can't sign, so wife signs for husband. But the signatures don't match. And what happens when the signatures don't match is that Kelly's signature ID election judges kick the ballot out and send a cure letter to the voter saying, your signatures, they were discrepant, or you didn't sign. You get that too. You need to fill out this form, sign the form, so you get a signature, and send it back. And a copy of the ID. Thank you. And most people do. Most people who get cure letters cure their ballot, and their ballot is then processed. In Custer County, there were during the election 13 in 2020 ballots that had signature discrepancies that were not cured. They got a signature cure letter. They didn't cure the signature. Those 13 people were referred to the district attorney. It is a crime to vote for someone else. We take that actually pretty seriously. There's a gentleman in Steamboat Springs who found that out. The district attorney in Mountain County brought charges in May for this person trying to vote 3 times. The process of the Rock County clerk processed the first ballot, and she stopped the second and third ballot and referred the case to the DA. I don't know of any charges in Custer County out of these 13, and my suspicion is that what frequently happens is the district attorney's office has an investigator. The investigator contacts the person and gets in the talking. The effort here is to stop the bad behavior. We aren't really interested in sending people to jail. But we have a process in case we need to. In 23, at the coordinated, there were only 4 ballots where the signature was discrepant, the cure letter went out, and there was no effort to cure. There was no successful cure. This is the gentleman that I was thinking of. His name is Barry Morphew. His wife, Susan Morphew, had disappeared and was presumed to be dead. Subsequently, her remains have been found. Lo and behold, in Chaffin County, Susan Morphew's ballot for the 2020 election alive, even though she was dead. And Barry Morphew had signed the ballot. He was prosecuted, he pled guilty, was given a sentence for the conviction of voting his wife's ballot. I'm going to move on because I know Matt has a lot of things to say. After the election day, after the 8 days that we are required by federal law to wait for the uniform and overseas citizens ballots to come in, this is the reason why the election is not actually official and done until 8 days after election day, because we are required to wait for those ballots to come in. We conduct an audit. The audit is, and in Colorado, we are the first state, and this was under Secretary Williams, to conduct what's called a risk limiting audit. It relies on statistical principles to figure out, with the margin of difference between 2 candidates, how many ballots do you need to look at and confirm that the ballot was counted correctly in order to have confidence in the outcome. In order to do that kind of audit, we have to have paper, and we have to have paper that is batched, so we can go to batch 23 and ballot 15, and pull that one ballot and have a bipartisan team look at that ballot and compare what they see on the ballot to what the machine said was on the ballot. And that's the audit, to look at the paper and to assess whether there is any discrepancy. And we do get discrepancies. Discrepancies frequent here because when the audit tells them to go to batch 23 and ballot 15, they get 16. And if you pull out 16, it won't have precisely the same votes. It could not have precisely the same votes. And we look at every vote on that ballot. We don't just, we use one race to figure out how many ballots. That's called the target race. We use one ballot to figure out one race to figure out how many ballots we should be pulling. But then we look at all the races on the ballots that we pull. And if there is any discrepancy, that is recorded. And if you get enough discrepancies that statistically call into question the reliability of the outcome, you have to do it again. You have to pull up another set of ballots, and you have to compare them again. And you could end up doing an entire hand count if you were getting discrepancies all the time. But you don't have to pull out a second round if you don't have any discrepancies. And this is a picture. This all starts with a random seed number, a 20-digit number that is generated, Dungeons and Dragons players like this, by 10-sided dice, a die that is a 0 to 9. We roll 20 of those dice through the tower and come up with the digits that are the 20-digit number. That 20-digit number is the start of the randomization that tells us which ballot to pull. There's the 20-digit number. This is a team in Denver that was doing the audit. Here is Kelly's report from Custer County in 22. She pulled 111 ballots in the first round, and you can see there were 0 discrepancies. I think I'm supposed to let you ask questions, but I promise, even if you don't get a question, I will stick around. But I'm happy to answer. In any event, my point simply is Kelly is perfect. She has never had a discrepancy, which is probably because y'all have very readable ballots. The discrepancies are most likely, most frequently, when there's a disagreement of interpretation, when a ballot has, the oval wasn't really filled in and then they circled something else. We have a manual that teaches judges how to interpret so that across the whole state, everybody's using the same manual to decide what the voter's intent was, but you can still have some disagreement. And we have found that in every instance where there was a discrepancy, it is either they pulled the wrong ballot or they have a difference of opinion in interpreting a voter's law. Never have we found a discrepancy based on the machine recording a vote opposite from what the audit team sees.
Who votes the ballot?
I'm sorry?
Who votes the ballot?
The bipartisan audit team that is assembled by the clerk.
But the computer chooses the ballot in the audit.
The software that generates the randomization, yes.
So a computer is auditing the computer.
Well, humans are auditing. The computer is telling you which ballots to look at.
That's right.
Okay, so we'll get questions at the end.
The last part of the election process is the canvas. The canvas is the other side of the confirmation of reliability, which is to ensure that the machines have not counted more ballots than they should have. This is the question of ballot stuffing. I will tell you that we have never encountered a situation where there are more ballots that have been counted than were issued. Because in Colorado, we send a ballot to each voter, active voter, and it goes to the address that we have confirmed. And the ballot has a barcode on the outside of the envelope, and we track it. And there just isn't the possibility of printing fake ballots. Those will be caught in the system, because every ballot is unique. Every envelope, is unique. It's trackable. If you return ballots, So ballots that are undeliverable. I mentioned that a voter, we have an active voter, we send it to that home, they no longer live there, the postmaster is required to return it. When it comes to Kelly, what does Kelly do? She has to log all of the undeliverable ballots. This is part of the canvas. I've said enough. I think you want to let Matt do his job before we take questions. But I'm happy.
Probably, if you would like to field questions, we would let you fill a few right quick. If you don't, if you would
let Matt go and then.
Okay, we'll take all the questions after they've all spoken. And if you can, fill out your question forms, please.
Shoot through a little bit and get these microphones in a better spot.
Keep it very close to your mouth, we're still getting, people can't hear off the Zoom.
Good evening, everybody. I am Curly Pappas, and I'm the Weld County Clerk and Recorder, and I'm very honored to serve with Kelly in this capacity, along with the rest of the county clerks across the state. I am here this evening to answer some more additional questions and also give support to Kelly. You guys are very fortunate. You have a very solid good clerk here in Custer County, and I hope you don't take that for granted. Okay, so how is the Colorado County Clerks Association structured? We are a volunteer fee-based organization. Fortunately, all 64 county clerk and recorders in the state do associate with the association. We also have an elected executive board. I am currently serving as the vice president of the board, and I will be president-elect next year and president in 2026. This will actually be my second go-around as president of the association. We also have a very small staff. We will have Matt Crane speak here just a little bit. He is our executive director. And then we have some communications people as well that help with our communications. We're also extremely engaged at the state legislature. We have actually boards of bipartisan teams of clerks that go and actually represent our best interests for the voters down at the legislature. It's always a grand old time at the legislature. If you pay any attention to that, I drink a lot of caffeine to try and make it through those meetings. So I want to talk about Colorado's hybrid election model. I've been in elections for 20 years. This is my 20th year in elections in Colorado, so I've seen the progression to where we are in today's election model. In 2013, we did pass a law that changed us to a hybrid, which is now we're a primary all-mail ballot, but we also still have the option of voting in person. So we're kind of like Burger King, have it your way. You can still either participate with your paper mail ballot, or you can come in and cast a paper ballot in person as well. So in person, voting is still available in the 2020 general election. As Chris kind of mentioned prior, there was only actually 6% of Colorado electors that participated in that election actually go and vote in person. It varies per county. In Weld County, I didn't even have 1% of my voters actually come and vote in person. And you saw Kelly's numbers as well. Again, we are an all paper ballot state. There's been a lot of conversations and a lot of talk that we don't have paper ballots and that we only vote on voting equipment and machines. That is inaccurate. We have paper ballots. That's what we have. Even if you go in person and you vote on one of the ballot marking devices, it prints you your ballot, and that paper ballot is in what is counted. So that's the same across all 64 counties. If they're clear ballot or Dominion, we're all paper ballot. Another big thing is I actually met a couple of election judges in here. Our elections are conducted by you, the citizens. We are a citizen-based election model, not only in Colorado, but across the nation. Myself and Kelly's team, we all work year round to getting the election ready and prepped. But when it actually comes to running the election, assisting the voters, it is actually your citizens, your neighbors, your church members, your community members that come in and take over and run the elections. They are the ones that are the bipartisan teams that Chris mentioned during his presentation that are running the elections, and we're there to assist and help them make sure that everything is secure, transparent, and fair. So again, as Chris did mention before, election systems are tested and audited multiple times before every election, during the election, and after the election. So we do have the two systems, Dominion and Clear Ballot, that are certified, both at the federal level and state level. I do want to note that Colorado's certification requirements are actually higher than the federal certification requirements. So there's actually a higher threshold that they have to meet for us to be able to actually use them here in Colorado. So they did get federally certified, but they also went through Colorado certification, which is tougher than federal certification. So Dominion and Clear Ballot did pass both of those. We have what is called conditions of use. And what are the conditions of use? You kind of saw a little bit of that in Chris's presentation with all the wonderful seals. I'm sure Kelly feels like I do. We have seal galore. We have seals over screws. We have seals over USB ports. We have screws and seals everywhere. There are so many that I think for one machine, there's at least 15 for every machine, and sometimes there's even more. So that's a lot of seals on every single piece of our equipment. Now, with that, that's how we get the conditions of use. The conditions of use through the certification are said, okay, there is this vulnerability in the equipment. This is how your security protocols are going to meet to not allow that to be used in any malice way. So that's the conditions of use. For the system that Kelly and I use, it's actually a 20-page document that lists all the different security protocols we have to meet to make sure that our system stays secure. Video surveillance, the seals, the under lock and key, the chain of custody, all of that is dictated in the conditions of use. Now, the logic and accuracy testing, I would like to ask, how many of you have gone and watched Kelly's logic and accuracy testing in person? The IT guy did, that's awesome. Thank you. The logic and accuracy testing is the testing of the equipment it's the testing before every election. So the logic and accuracy is our requirement to test every possible way a ballot can be marked. Then we have public members of the Republican Democratic Party come in and mark their ballots however they want. Now they have to hand tally their 25 ballots. Sometimes they can do more, but at minimum it's 25 ballots that they have to mark. We obviously don't know how they're going to mark them. That's up to them to determine how they're going to test the system. So they mark their 25 ballots. We have our test deck, which is every single possible way that we can possibly determine how a voter can vote for that election, and we run it through the equipment. So we have a zero report that the bipartisan team, public logic and accuracy testers verify, so we know that there's nothing currently on the equipment. We run our test deck through, we do our hand count internally, we verify our hand count versus what the machine is saying, and we move on. If that goes through, we clear it out, then we run the party ballots through, verify against their hand count. Every single time in my 20 years in elections, if there's a problem, it's always with the hand count. There's not been a single time that there's been where the equipment has not counted the ballots accurately. Every time it has always been with the hand count that the auditors are presenting. It's not ever been with our actual equipment. Then we have the risk limiting audit, which Chris already kind of spoke about. I'm sure you'll have plenty of questions about that as well. And congratulations to Kelly. It is very important to really congratulate her on having such a remarkable result in your audit testing. So good job, Kelly. That takes a lot of work. That's from A to Z, tracking every single ballot, keeping the chain of custody, doing daily reconciliation. It's a lot of work to make sure that when we get to the risk limiting audit, our judges and our outside auditors are coming in and being able to pull the correct ballot and being able to put it into the auditing system, which is independent from the actual voter registration and voting equipment. So So it is completely different and separate. So since 2016, there has been over 2,000 times that Kelly and my equipment has been tested in the state with either the logic and accuracy and the auditing. So here's some more of the voter registration information, kind of broken down a little bit. Now there has been a lot of questions around automatic voter registration and online voter registration. So online voter registration was implemented in 2010. And as you can see, the trend of the voter registration for the parties was already kind of going before online voter registration started. Then, as you can see in 2019, that's when automatic voter registration started, but as you can tell, the trends were already there. So those two pieces did not actually impact the voter registration and the party affiliation in Colorado. So here is Custer County's data information. I can keep going, but we can trade off an hour later, doesn't matter. So with Custer County, one of the claims that was made a while ago and has kind of hit not only Kelly, but myself and some other strong conservative areas is that 30% of the voters drop off the voter rolls. And frankly, that's actually not accurate information at all. Unfortunately, the people that did that data analysis didn't actually know how to read our voter registration reports. So unfortunately, because they did not understand how elections work, they did not know how to tell the difference between active, inactive, undeliverable, canceled, and pre-registrant. Since they didn't understand that, they have come up with this claim that 30% of the voters dropped off the voter rolls after the general election. Again, that's not correct at all. As you can see, with Kelly's information, she had in 2022 an uptick just because right before the general election, we always have more people interested. We always want to try and figure out how and why people participate. When we ask that question, it's because, well, I participate because of what's on the ballot, not because of their civic duty. It's because they care about what's on their ballot. And normally, during a general election, and particularly a presidential election, that brings people out. And with that, that makes sure that people check their voter registration. They find out, oh shoot, I'm not registered anymore, I need to make sure and register. So that's why we always see, and even like over the last 20 years, we see that every general election, we have an uptick in voter registration. We have more people engaging in our civic right of casting our ballot. They're wanting their voice to be heard during those what they consider more important elections. Now, I'm sure all of you are very interested, and you are the ones that actually cast a ballot every election. Thank you. When we do appreciate all the voters that participate every time, because when it comes down to the small elections, those are the ones that get decided by 1, 2, 3 votes. So it really does come down to every single election we treat the same. If it's a small or large, we want to make sure that your voice is heard, no matter the importance to the nation in elections, but the importance to the community as well. So here's just some more information. There was a claim in 2021 that Custer County voter registration data showing a 102% registration with over 100% turnout. As you can tell by the numbers, that is very misleading and partially false. Census data, we have to remember, when we're using census data to compare against voter registration information, that is an estimate and taken in April of the year, not November. So it is important to see that voter turnout did not outpace population in Custer County, and it didn't impact the 2020 or 2021 as well. So you can tell, as of April 1st in 2020, there was 4,008 over the age of 18 that are eligible. Active as of November of 2020, 4,062, so that's only a 54 difference. But again, that's just because people moving in, people obviously between April and November turn 18. There's a lot of information. The turnout was a 90.45%. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of jealous that you had that kind of a turnout. I wish all of us counties had that turnout, so good job, Custer County. I'm a little jealous of that number, I'm not gonna lie. We work really hard, so you guys are rewarding Kelly with some great turnout. In 2021, as you can see again, as the voter population of April was slightly lower than the actives in November, but it was only a difference of 9. That isn't 102%. And there isn't 100% turnout. So that claim with your voter registration information is not accurate at all. And again, it goes back to them not understanding actually how to read the reports that we provided to them. The truth about hand counting. So hand counting, the information that has been put out there, there's been a lot of research, especially over the last 4 years. It takes longer to get results. It is vastly more expensive. It requires a significantly more amount of staff and volunteers. And at the end of the day, it is 100% less accurate. There's been a lot of studies, a lot of other counties have done this research, a lot of other states have done this research, and those are the 4 big points that are taken away when it comes to hand counting. That's perfectly fine. We can agree to disagree on it. I'm going to go with the facts. Colorado has very long ballots. Our ballots are very complex. They are very challenging. We have a lot of stuff on our ballots, unlike France and Germany, where they only have one contest on their ballot. We have multiple contests on our ballot. So it does make it a lot more challenging to actually do a hand count, especially in general elections. So in 2022, there was approximately in Nevada, this was a hand count that was done. They had an average of a 25% error in their hand count. I don't know about you, but I don't think 25% error is good. I don't think that that's acceptable. I don't think I would want to do elections if 25% error rate was okay. Because even in my county, I have had races that have come down to 1 or 2 votes. And if I have a 25% error rate, that means ultimately somebody could be the winner. And because of that error rate, they'll lose. And that's just not a good representation of the people's voice. In Arizona, they also did a test of hand counting in June of 2023. That test deck was only 850 ballots, so in comparison, that's a very small drop. That's not a lot of ballots. They had approximately 36 races, so there's 36 items on that ballot to vote on those 850 ballots. They came up with what they referred to as the dream team. They said these are the best of the best people. We want them to do the hand count. It took them 3 days to complete it. 850 ballots, 3 days to complete. They had 46 ballots, or a 5.1% of error rate in 850 ballots. Even a 5% error rate, to me, is not acceptable. I don't know about you, but I don't believe that's an acceptable error rate. They also had testing in good conditions, so they weren't underneath pressure, they weren't underneath timelines, they didn't have media calling them, they didn't have candidates coming in wanting to know how the race was going. It wasn't after election judges had already worked a 14, 15-hour day. They were able to do that at their own pace, their own time. It still took them 3 days. And so let's just say we take that example and apply it to El Paso County in Colorado. If we took what they did in El Paso County in 2020, we would have had an error rate of 5.41% out of the 383,000 ballots that were returned. That would equate for 20,731 ballots would have been incorrect. That could change the outcome of an election. That is unacceptable in my professional opinion. Hand counting is very, very unreliable. And again, the minimum error rate for a voting system to pass federal, this is federal, is a 0.00001%. It's higher in Colorado, because remember, Colorado's testing standards are actually higher than federal. So they are not even allowed to essentially have any type of error rate when it comes to how their machines are operating and reading our votes. Here's some more examples. Again, in Arizona, it cost them $1 million to try and attempt a hand recount. That was 195,000 ballots. In California, in Shasta County, which is a relatively smaller county, about 53,000, it cost them approximately $659,000 to actually do a hand recount of their ballots. And also, you know, to be honest, it would be impossible for most counties to create the same security protocols in remote vote centers and precincts. So back in the early 2000s, we voted in precincts. You had an assigned location you had to go to. We weren't even able to staff those back in the day. It would be even more difficult and challenging to try and do that now. We are having less people participate in coming and being election judges. So again, kudos to everybody who's volunteering as election judges. We all appreciate you, not only in your county, but the whole entire state. And frankly, those pushing for hand counts are actually pushing for elections that are less accurate. As I said, I don't believe a 5% error rate is acceptable. And I would rather have a 0.000001% chance of potential error. That won't change an election, but a 5% absolutely would change the outcome of an election.
You're telling me it costs $10 per ballot to count by hand?
At minimum, yes.
Can you repeat the question? That's the biggest vote in the malarkey I've ever heard in my life.
And I have all of the materials that I can provide to you.
Country is nobody can do anything anymore.
No, you're fine.
I'm pretty disappointed. I can sure leave.
I'm just giving you more pieces to the puzzle so you can be educated. I'm just giving and providing you more information. I have a whole bunch of information I can talk you through, and I've got a whole bunch of stuff that will show you the data that shows the amount of every dollar.
Okay, let's not, hold up. We're not going there yet.
No, you're fine, sir. I greatly appreciate your comments.
In 1980, did it cost $10 a ballot to count back then before we had machines?
We had machines back in 1980. But it's been a long time, but if you put it in today's dollars, even back then, yes, it was very costly for every single ballot to be counted by hand. At minimum, you're gonna be lucky if it's $10 per ballot. It goes up the more people you put to it. So how quickly you guys want results, the more people we have to put towards it, the higher the cost of the hand count is going to be.
I thought they were volunteers.
So election judges do get paid. We do have to, by law, actually pay them at least $1. Most of us pay more than that. So if you are going to volunteer as election judge, it's not free. We are required to pay.
Y'all have an accounting on the total expense of maintaining equipment, all the staff to run it, the updating, the IT departments, all that information, because we're talking millions of dollars. So billions of dollars. So let's compare apples to apples versus throwing this out there and saying, well, it's more expensive. Tell us what it costs for the other system and all the employees.
For both Dominion and Clear Ballot?
This system.
So both, correct?
The
Yes.
election system.
Are you gonna address that, Chris? Yeah, we are, hold up.
Commissioner, I was only going to suggest that you guys actually know the answer to the question, because the Dominion contract is your contract. How much was your Dominion contract? I think it was like 15,000.
I would look to Kelly on that one right quick.
21,000 was the license cost for the Dominion machine in Custer County. The amount to run a hand count requires at least 100 volunteers who must be paid $15 an hour. Whereas, yes, by law, must be paid.
We never got paid. We got paid 10.
Okay.
Kevin, are we going to ask questions now or later?
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and let them finish their presentation to us. If you have your questions, please have them and submit them, and we will get those asked to them. Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Matt Crane. I'm the Executive Director of the Colorado County Clerks Association. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight to speak and to talk about Colorado elections. So, As you saw Chris talk a lot about the nuts and bolts of what happens in elections, Carly started providing some context and truth to what you guys are hearing. We're going to continue along those lines. So we'll get to other things, Dominion claims, Mason County reports, some of the other things that have been reported across the country. So let's talk a little bit about the Dominion claims. The claim is that Eric Coomer, who used to work for Dominion, somehow was on a call when he said, I'm gonna make sure Trump didn't win the election.
So did your wife work for?
Yeah, no, you know what, that's a great question. My wife did work for Dominion. She started with Sequoia in 2002. She went and separated from Dominion in 2019. She still does some contract work for them on ballot layout. That's been in the public square since 2005 or 6. No, it's okay. Let me answer this question. So I used to be the clerk and recorder of Arapahoe County. I was appointed in 2013. This issue came up, and there was a county ethics committee that took a look at it and said, could I be impartial? Was there a conflict of interest? It was a bipartisan committee. They decided unanimously it was not a conflict of interest, and the report was written by Randy Portman, a Republican National Committee. Well, that's your opinion. The voters in 2014 said, no, it's not. So, hang on. Let me keep going through this. So, this got started because a gentleman here in Colorado, Joe Oldman, said that he was on a said that he was on an Antifa call, and a guy named Eric said, I'm going to fix the election. Now, this is highly implausible, not true, but you don't have to take my word for it. You may think I have a conflict of interest. You want to pass things out? How many of you have heard of Alex Haldeman? Alex Haldeman, he was the subject matter expert in the Georgia curling case who came up with vulnerabilities in the voting system, right? Let's take his word about this theory put out by Joe Oldman. He addressed these claims in a declaration he provided in Eric Coomer v. Donald Trump for president. According to Dr. Haldeman, there is not and has never been credible evidence that the outcome of the 2020 election was rigged by anyone, let alone Dr. Coomer. He goes on to say it would have been the height of cartoonish buffoonery to claim to a large group that such a scheme was in the works, much less that it was guaranteed to prevail. In my experience, such claims as Oldman's are characteristic of, quote, crackpot conspiracy theories. They should have cast doubt on the entirety of Oldman's allegations in the mind of any responsible party. Again, Dr. Haldeman, in my experience, this is a red flag that indicates claims are likely based on quackery and junk science. And then he also says, this is Dr. Haldeman, this is not me. He says the errors, gaps, and indicators of charlatanism in Oldman's statements, together with his lack of election security expertise, should have rendered his claims about Dr. Coomer non-credible to any responsible party. But other defendants nonetheless chose to promote them on a national stage. That's Dr. Haldeman, that's not me. We'll talk about some of the outcomes of what happened because of this in just a minute, and how it was catastrophic to the Republican Party. Here's another one. No, registered Republican all my life, but thank you, Bill. Okay, did we lose this?
We did.
Can I use this?
You may.
Is that good?
Push your button.
Funny how that works.
Didn't work.
Work? Check. I didn't step on anything. Sir?
Hey, Jordan. We lost our sound.
Oh, let there be light. We're good. Now we lost the screen though.
We have it online, but we don't have it on the iPad.
So sorry.
Okay, it's back up. This is. See if it's on there.
Good.
Everybody would have to log back in.
And we're waiting on the owl.
So showing my screen.
The owl will be still on.
Yeah, the screen's still on.
Okay. I shouldn't have clicked it off and on, but we lost all of our sound. I went down. I clicked the bar off and on after we lost sound. That's why we lost this.
Sounds like. Fan.
There we go. So like actually, do we need to, is it slow?
Jordan.
I think so. For those online, we're just waiting for the screen to come back.
The owl. Okay.
Everybody see okay? Okay, so let's talk a little bit more now about some of the claims against Eric Coomer. One that's spread by a few people, that he had patents on the voting system that helped lead to fraud. Again, don't take my word, take Haldeman's word. A close reading of those claims that the patents relate to an improvement in electronic adjudication that makes it even more traceable, appending information about the adjudicated result to the image of the ballot. Like adjudication generally, there's nothing sinister about this invention. It does not make fraud easier, it makes it easier to detect. Again, this is from Alex Haldeman, who is a voting systems expert. This should have been obvious to defendants from the patents alone, and credible experts in election security or election administration could have explained it had the defendants consulted them. This is one of the problems with a lot of the claims about the 2020 election. People purposely don't talk to election experts, election administrators, because it doesn't fit the narrative. They have an outcome in mind, and so they try to fit the outcome, or the facts to their outcome, rather than letting the facts take them to where the truth is. Okay, so now let's talk about Mason County and the reports out of Mason County. Report number 1, the claim is that 29,000 files were illegally deleted during the trusted bill process. Okay, now what's the truth? Chris talked about this a little bit before, as did Carly. When a new version of a voting system software and firmware is to be installed, the old software and firmware is deleted. Once that's done, and only then can the new software and firmware be installed, because you want a clean box before you lay down new software and firmware. Now, Mesa County did save all of the records required for retention under federal and state law, both during the election and before the trusted bill. The irony is, Tina Peters didn't know this. You may be asking how I know that. I saw her at the Republican Assembly in Arapahoe County in 2022. And she says, are you saying that these records aren't supposed to be retained? I said, no, Tina, they are supposed to be retained. Your team retained them. She says, what? Show me, where? She had no idea what her team was doing. None. Now, it's absolutely true. Now, Windows access and activity logs, there's a lot of talk about that. Those files are not required for retention under federal and state law. Never have been. Maybe they should be, maybe we should take a look at that, but they never have been. So ultimately, the conclusion in Mesa Report 1 is false. Mesa staff did back up all records required for retention under federal and state law before the trusted bill process. So now let's talk about Mesa Report number 2. You're going to see a recurring theme here, that the authors of this get this wrong. Why? Because they didn't talk to election experts or election administrators. They don't know election law, they don't know election process. They don't know how these systems are supposed to function. Those are the common themes throughout all of this. So, claim 2, 36 wireless devices were found, illegal wireless devices were found on the Mesa County voting system. Here's the truth. Voting systems and their components are tested and certified with complete knowledge that Wi-Fi components may be on those systems. There are some states who actually use those components to transmit results after the polls close, like think in Alaska where they have a long way to go and they need to get results back in a timely fashion, they use that modeming to be able to get results back. It is not illegal. Now, I would say it's not advisable, it's not a best practice, which is why Colorado says that those devices are not allowed to be used. So during the trusted build process, those wireless and Bluetooth components are disabled in the BIOS during the trusted build process. So the claim that they were there, yes, they're there, but it's not illegal. I heard somebody say here from the meeting last month that it's in our state constitution that that can't be there, which is just not true. Again, somebody speaking about election law who has no clue what they're talking about. Okay, let's talk about Mesa Report 3. This is the one where they say that secret databases were created in the adjudication process to get rid of some ballots and add other ballots into the process, right? This one is laughably false. When we read it the first time, we said, you gotta be kidding. So here's the truth. For those of you who don't know, adjudication is a process that happens if the voting system cannot determine the voter's intent. The ballot image is presented to a bipartisan team of election judges to determine voter intent. And then they can go on the screen and adjust and select however they agree that the voter, what their intent was. If they don't agree, then they undervote that contest. The bipartisan team has to agree. Now, in the 2020 general election and the 2021 municipal election in Grand Junction, Mesa County staff set up adjudication incorrectly. So what do I mean by that? There are filters in the adjudication process, so it knows which ballots to send to adjudication. For the purposes of an original count in Colorado, undervote, so if somebody leaves a contest blank, that is not supposed to go to adjudication. The only time undervotes are looked at is in a recount scenario. What happened in Mesa in both the 2020 general and the 2021 municipal is that they incorrectly set the filters to include undervotes. So they're seeing a large number of undervotes come into adjudication. And they're like, oh my gosh, what's happening? How did this happen? We have way too many ballots that are filtering into adjudication. So they stopped the process. They backed out all of the ballots that had been run. They then reset the filters on adjudication so that only the proper ballots go to adjudication. That created a new table because you don't want to use a table with bad data and continue building on that. So there was the original table, it was backed out, there's a new table, and then they say, well, there's less ballots in the new table. This shows you how unfamiliar the authors are with the election process. Because when you adjust the filters and take out the undervotes, of course there are going to be fewer ballots that come into adjudication. Now, the other ballots were not disregarded. The other ballots were counted. So they weren't in the same bucket. They didn't go to adjudication. Now, you may be wondering, how do we know this, right? How do we know? Because we went to the files that Mesa County backed up under federal and state retention laws to reconstruct this part of the election. So remember the files that report 1 says don't exist, will last forever? It's not true. We use those files to help debunk report number 3. The files are there, they are saved and retained in the federal and state law. Wireless devices are not illegal. They aren't advisable, which is why we disable them. And the Mesa Report 3 is so lost in its conclusions, it's not even worth reading. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about some of the other things that have been said since 2020. Right, the Kraken, Sidney Powell talks about the Kraken. This goes back to the Eric Coomer thing, putting in malicious code. That's not true. It's been proven not true. Carly passed out the Haldeman Declaration in the Coomer v. Trump case. I highly encourage you to read that because he takes on all of these things. Again, you don't have to take my word for it. You can take Alex Haldeman's word for it. Antrim County, Michigan. I know a lot of you have heard about Antrim County, Michigan and concerns there about what happened in Antrim County. Now, if you listen to some of the people who say there's a Kraken in the voting system, they would say that was first evidence of the Kraken. But as Carly said, when you go to the facts, it creates a different story. The team in Antrim County, Michigan had a late addition to their ballot. When they built their ballot, they didn't, when they added it at the end, they didn't go through and update all of the different components of the voting system. So on election night, you had votes coming into the wrong bucket, into the wrong vote totals. So there were votes that were supposed to go to Trump that were going to Biden and all the way down the ballot. The staff there recognized that. The process worked because staff are looking at this, despite the claims of some election officials are incredibly intelligent and know what they're doing. This is an incredibly professional skill set and environment that we work in. The Antrim County clerk, a Republican, by the way, found it. She did everything right once they found the error. They stopped tabulating, they investigated, they found what the issue was, they corrected the issue, and then they were transparent. They didn't try to hide it. They went out to the public and said, this is what happened, this is why you see results flipping, changing, coming back, this is what happened. And yet there are still people, one of the authors, I think, I watched Let My People Go, or something, whatever it is, and they're still talking about Antrim County, Michigan. They are pushing a lie on you. 100% they are pushing a lie on you. And again, we'll talk about the catastrophic effects this lie has had. It absolutely is true.
Oh, that's not true.
No, that's true. I appreciate you saying that. That is true. I'm not lying to you. I'm glad you recognize that. So let's talk more. Party watchers and observers are not allowed to observe the process in Philadelphia. Remember Giuliani was doing a press conference in front of that? Remember that? We'll get to that one in a minute. Georgia did not do signature verification. That's not true. They actually do it twice. They do signature verification on the absentee ballot application, and then they do it on the envelope when it comes back in. But that won't stop a good lie.
What about locking the windows in Detroit?
Hang on, let me keep going. Sharpies were handed out to Republicans used to invalidate their ballots. That's not true. 2,000 mules, I'm assuming you guys have heard of 2,000 mules?
Well, that's not true either.
No, it's not true. Did you know?
All that video that we got?
No, I'm glad you brought up the video. So first things first, Salem has stopped distributing it because of all the facts around it. There was supposed to be a book about it, and they didn't distribute that or publish that book because of the lies in there. Now let's talk about the video. Did you know one of the reasons they stopped is because one of the people they said was a mule was not a mule. They were returning ballots for people in their household, family members in their household. The fun part about this, my most favorite part about 2,000 mules is, you know the maps they show to show the mule routes going all around? They show one for Gwinnett County, Georgia, right? The only problem is that map is a map of Moscow, Russia, not Gwinnett County, Georgia. So now ask yourself, Dinesh D'Souza put that out. I had great respect for him for a long time. Has he come out and taken accountability for the lies in that film? No. Has he returned money from those of you?
There's been lies.
Do your own research. Don't take my word for it. I bet this is the first time you're hearing any of this. Do you? And when you find it, ask for your money back. I bet you don't get it. And now he's off making other movies to bullshit you about other things and keep taking your money. No.
Every time there's a problem and it is brought out, you say it's baloney, and just because you say that. However, I'm supposed to believe that Joe Biden won more votes than Barack Obama.
I mean, you can say what you want, but the data clearly shows it. I've heard that too, right? Joe Biden could get 6 people in a backyard barbecue, and Trump got lots of people out to rally, so how could he have won? Like that is any scientific measurement.
Hold on, Lisa, just for a second.
Let me keep going.
Wait a second. Point of order here. This is being recorded, so we want to hear your voices, Lisa, and everybody else that have good points. And we'll open that up in a minute, and we'll have a comment here from the commissioners too. So keep those points in mind. Be polite to each other.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. Oh. Okay.
Let him finish his.
Not to you, not
Okay, let's let him finish his presentation, please.
Okay. So here are some other things specific to Colorado. That the score voter registration system has never been tested. Mind you, the same person who said this also said the voting systems in Colorado have never been truly tested. Mind you, he made this statement without talking to anybody in the Secretary of State's office or anybody who would have knowledge about this. So I can tell you, SCORE and Dominion have been tested extensively in Colorado, both in terms of user testing, user acceptance testing, but also penetration testing, looking for vulnerabilities in these systems, and then the state works to mitigate those vulnerabilities as best as possible. So to say that these systems have not been tested is an outright lie. Next, no 24/7 monitoring at school. The same person said that. That is not true at all. The state has 2 separate systems for monitoring SCORE 24/7. This is another one. Every voter registration database in the country was hacked. Douglas Frank was going around saying that. That's 100% not true. Eric, you heard Chris talk about the Electronic Registration and Information Center. There's a claim out there that says it makes our list maintenance worse, and that it's funneling those voters into our voter registration system, and that it's allowing George Soros to get your signatures. So a couple of points of clarification. 1, no state sends their signatures to Eric. 2, Eric looks at the voter registration data and DMV data from all of the member states, compares it, and then it says, okay, we have fixes for Colorado. We see that, let's say Chris Beal moved to Florida. And so Colorado, here's a list. There's no direct access to SCORE. Here's a list. Look at this list, study this list. You make the final determination. Since Eric was created in 2012, and Scott Gessler was a founding member of that, they've identified over 25 million potential errors in voter registration that states get that list and they work it. And now, because some of these people are pushing lies about Eric, we see states leaving it. When the effect of it is, it's making our voter registration list less accurate. It's making our list maintenance efforts worse. Again, another common thing of what you're hearing tonight, whether, as Carly said, with hand counts, the people, the leaders who are pushing hand counts are pushing for less accurate, less secure, and less transparent elections. The people pushing us to get out of Eric are pushing for less accurate voter registration lists. This is all the truth. I know it goes against a lot of what is heard in conservative channels. Believe me, I hear it too. Carly hears it too, and it's just not true. Thousands of dead people voted. Love this one. This comes up with every election. In El Paso County in 2021, there was a citizen who did a little bit of work on data. And he turned in a list of 759 names of people he said had a ballot, who were deceased and a ballot was cast in their name. Guess how many he got right? 1. Now, there's more fun context to that. The El Paso County signature verification team caught the signature discrepancy and had already referred it to the district attorney. We do not have mass instances of dead people voting. No, we actually don't, and the data supports that. Automatic voter registration makes list maintenance worse. I think Chris talked about this a little bit. That's absolutely not true. This is the quickest check that we have to citizenship. Checks for registering to vote. How many think we should have citizenship checks? It's okay, you can say it. I'll agree with you. I agree, right? Well, automatic voter registration does a bump up against the driver's license, and as Chris said, people that are here illegally are not in that list that comes over. So if they try, they can't even use the system.
So let's just think about that for 1 second. What does it take to get your driver's license? I'm gonna leave it right there. That's all I'm gonna say.
Well,
and you read it and cite yourself.
There's a whole list of.
There's only 6.
Yeah. Well,
it's a birth certificate, passport, naturalization, or military ID.
Or a utility bill.
No, that's not true.
In your library.
That's not true. For voting it is, unfortunately, I agree with you, it shouldn't be, but it's not for a driver's license. And those details matter. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, one thing, counties restrict the number of signatures an election judge can reject. I heard John Eastman say this back in 2021. That's not true. That's absolutely untrue. Voting systems aren't properly certified. Again, that's not true. Our voting systems have always been properly certified. We talked about our voting systems never being tested. No one checks to see if our systems are connected to the internet. Again, that's not true. They're disconnected during the BIOS. County clerks have the ability to verify that, and now many include that verification during their public logic and accuracy test. One of my favorites from 2020, election night reporting website sends data to servers in Europe, and the results get cleansed and flipped around, and then they come back here. That's actually not true. The ENR company that Colorado uses, their server farm is in the Midwest. It doesn't go over to Europe. And the other thing about election night reporting is it's an aggregation of unofficial results, right? It has no bearing, no election official takes results from election night reporting and substitutes that for reports coming out of the voting system. It's an unofficial aggregation to make life easier for voters and for the media. So if you want to see, in Custer County, if you want to see how, let's say, the presidential race is going, election night results aggregation allows that to happen. So you can go to one spot, not have to go to 64 counties to aggregate the data yourself. So the idea was to be more transparent, to provide better tools to voters and to the media so that you guys can have better access. Hang on. This one too, the CCCA believes no changes are needed to improve elections. And I think that goes to one of the comments over here that we say everything's okay, that there's no issues. And nothing could be further from the truth. Since 2020, the CCCA is leading the effort to improve the audits around our signature verification. We're working to improve the audits around voter registration. We are working to put ballot images and cast vote records out after each election for free, so that if anybody wants to spend a Friday night and recount the ballots for their precinct, I'd rather go on a date with my wife. But if you want to spend that time and recount the votes in your precinct or your county, you can do that. We are not afraid of transparency, and we are pushing for more of it. In terms of the risk limiting audit, we'd love to see adjustments made to the risk limiting audit to improve the audit, to make that more transparent. So we are pushing for these things on a day-to-day basis, but I can tell you unassuredly and without reservation, having to chase down all of these lies makes it harder to do real work of improving election integrity.
But isn't it important?
To chase down these lies?
Yeah.
100%, because people are being hoodwinked, and we'll talk about that next. Yes, 100% they are. So let's look at this. You can say no, but let's take a look at this. Ripped from the headlines, right? Fox News, Sean Hannity says he knew all along Trump lost the election. Rudy Giuliani says in a deposition he didn't have the time to verify election claims. Right? When they go to court, they sing a different tune. Sidney Powell argues the Dominion lawsuit should be tossed against her because, quote, no reasonable person, end quote, believes her claim, her fraud claims. Think about how they are playing people, and especially Republicans, which is why people like Carly and I get so fighting mad, because they are taking advantage. Oh, now you're going to go to the CNN part? Go to the court fight. Well, I get frustrated because you lose sight of the forest for the trees. Ex-Chief of Staff Mark Meadows granted immunity, tells special counsel he warned Trump about 2020 claims. Giuliani told official in Arizona, we just don't have evidence of fraud. Former Trump lawyer acknowledged his efforts to overturn the election were based on theories. And then remember when we talked about Pennsylvania and Philadelphia and Giuliani standing in front of the county room saying, we don't get watchers in? When you go to court, you gotta be honest. Look what they filed in a court filing. So you can go right to the court filing, you don't have to trust the headline. The Trump campaign attorney conceded in court that a campaign had a quote, unquote, non-zero number of election observers in Philadelphia. I don't know about you, but to me that means they have people in the room. So again, I do get upset, I do get frustrated, because people are willfully misleading Americans, Republicans, into believing things that are not true. I know, we'll come around to it. Now, of course, Fox settled with Dominion for $800 million, almost $800 million. Smartmatic just settled, I think it was in April, Chris? We don't know the results of that, but you can guess it was quite a significant settlement there. The voting tech company said the network peddled lies that harm the company. Yes. Now let's talk about the outcome of these lies. 2021, Biden was just elected, controlling the United States Senate.
the same thing.
Check.
Lost power to the mic.
Don't turn it off and on again.
Yeah, don't turn it off and on.
I won't.
Jordan can't hear.
He's coming.
He's coming.
He was pausing.
We lost the lights on.
I don't think I'm moving stuff down.
Nobody's moved anything back here. Is there a fuse going?
Don't turn it off and on.
Turn it off.
So we're getting power to these mics, but where they're not picking up, they're not going to the speakers.
They're not,
Well, there's power to it, because this red light's turning on.
it's just not in, it's not good.
Turn yours on, we're supposed to turn yours
Bill, turn yours on.
Check, it's not doing.
And we lost the light down.
I think it's Rick's switches over here. He's got. I know. Can I still hear on mine?
Small, where is it going?
No, but he's got. Oh, wait, he's got.
There it is.
Hold on, let's just change it a bit. Phone.
Whoop, shouldn't have done that.
It was his last slide.
No, but we didn't lose the owl this time.
Whoa.
Bill, you're not allowed to be that close to it. Now we just have to get now we just have to get the thing back. Well, we're on the last.
She's got.
Check, I'm sorry. He's got one more slide, and then we'll talk a little bit.
Hey, Bill, I set that up so you don't have to be on top of the mic. You can.
I can be back here.
What's that?
Quick stretch.
You ready?
No.
I couldn't see.
You guys see that one?
Slowly but surely.
It comes.
It's up there, yeah.
You can turn that light off over there, Jordan. Or I guess we're done. Can't. On the wall. It's okay.
We're good.
Okay, can you guys see okay now? Yeah. Okay, so let's get back to it, and we're talking about the outcome of these election lies, right? So we're talking about the Georgia Senate runoff election in 2021, right after President Biden won the presidency. The Senate was the only potential backstop that Republicans had to stop Biden's agenda being able to run through freely. Now look, turnout dip among Georgia Republicans flipped the US Senate. A quote, "What good would it have done to vote? They had all the votes that got changed. I don't know if I'll ever vote again." They didn't want to vote because they knew they got screwed in the presidential election, Trump says, acknowledging that the pressed GOP turnout cost Republicans control of the Senate. Another impact of this, almost 40% of local election officials surveyed in a report have reported threats or abuse in a new report. And it's not just one report, it's multiple reports. Carly has received multiple against her when she was pregnant and her unborn child. It's not an uncommon occurrence. And it is all based on a lie. And the other thing that is incredibly disturbing about all of this, foreign adversaries use mis and disinformation around elections to sow division, confusion, and chaos. So the election lies, there are bots on social media created by foreign adversaries that use this and amplify it and spread it around and make sure that only certain people see it. They spread these lies. They are tools for foreign adversaries to sow divide here. And let's face it, it's working. I mean, even in the Republican Party, as we see, there's a great divide right now. But certainly across D's and R's, the whole 9 yards. This information is absolutely being used by social media to tear us apart. So when you look at this, and again, you don't have to believe me, read Dr. Haldeman's reports, where he goes through and knocks out all of this stuff, and he talks about efforts done in other states to verify the validity of counts done in those states. Michigan, Georgia, Arizona, Pennsylvania. Don't take my word for it. You should take Alex Haldeman's word for it. Do other research. But the people who have been feeding this to you do not have your best interests in mind. They have been misleading to you, if not lying to you. So I implore you, we implore you, go to multiple sources for information, and if you want to know about elections, go to the expert in your county, that is your clerk and recorder. If she doesn't know the answer off the top of her head, she will get the answer for you. But all of the data supports this, right? All of the data supports this. Go back to the Mesa reports, they're laughably bad in their conclusions. Look what Haldeman says about the stuff about Eric Coomer. There's more data to support what we say than what people peddling these lies say. Because I wasn't done yet. Now, Mr. Commissioner?
Okay.
I think that's it.
All right. I would ask first if there's any questions from the table up here.
I can't. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I'll step back from the mic. Now, I want to make a statement and a question or two. First of all, thank you for being here. But what I see, you got a lot of generalities you used and a lot of things like, it's bunk, it's not true, and you get frustrated. I understand that. However, you're talking to my boss out here, talking to your boss's boss as well. And so we're very respectful. You notice we're not rabble-rousing like you're used to. You see that? You see a little bit of distance in. But that's okay. What's important to know is this is being recorded. And I'm here to get information to make a decision eventually. I don't know what you're afraid of us asking questions and using things like it's 100% inaccurate or 100% bunk, that kind of stuff. We want to see data. You would be surprised to understand and know how many experts we have in this county on everything, from national intelligence people to experts in computer systems, experts on Dominion, as a matter of fact, people that have actually worked on these cases that live here in this valley, believe it or not. So, bearing that in mind, it's important for you all to understand your voice matters, and it matters that we hear you. That's why we didn't want you piping up immediately, going back and forth, because I couldn't hear your question and then get a good answer that I could understand, make a decision on whether it's good or bad or not. So I think there's some great questions. Some of these we're not going to be able to read because of the handwriting. So I would like to ask a couple of you to come up and state your question yourself. Also, it's important to understand there's a lot of people on Zoom and online that are having a heck of a hard time hearing as well. The good news is, keep in mind, this is being recorded word for word, and our people and people that are online can have access because it is public information. So, rest easy, your questions matter. So with that, I would like to, I'm getting a bunch of questions turned in. So go ahead, Jack, you just come up here and ask what you're asking.
I don't need to come
Say it
up
loud.
there.
Well,
Yes, what you do.
hold up a minute. Before you do that, we do have a bunch of questions that were turned in. We will ask the questions we can read.
Bill asked me, yeah.
Yes, he did, and I'm saying, wait a minute.
Wait
Please.
a second, because wait,
We need to keep
I just
it.
want to know why our county clerk and recorder is up there and lets us take clips.
Okay.
Okay, we are taking questions and we're reading the ones we can. Those that we cannot, we are going to have the party come up and ask those questions.
And Kevin,
She's
also,
She can answer your question.
there's a question online that was asked, so I'll ask them to state it so that everybody will hear it from that. Go ahead.
I'll start off, this is Lisa Franks. Voters are registered unaffiliated voters are registered at the DMV, correct? And must come in to change that. Is this also correct?
Yes, it is correct. A voter at DMV can select affiliation if they wish to.
Please put the mic up to your mouth.
A voter at DMV can select affiliation, but most do not. When the registration comes through your clerk sends a confirmation, and the voter is again asked whether they wish to affiliate. And if they choose to affiliate, they can specify. I think actually in Custer County, more people are affiliated than are not, but that is not the case across the state.
So, because.
And so,
Could I just fill that question out?
you may.
So when I was training.
We need to hear, come on up, please. So we gotta get it on the recording, so get on the mic.
When I was training as an election judge, and it came in the paperwork that the motor voter, that it was just automatic, and we get sent a list. And so I asked the question, how are they registered? And do they know they're being registered? No?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I was told no, that they are automatically registered as an unaffiliated, and the list comes in, this is what I was told, Cal, and then you send something out saying you're registered, this is you're registered as an unaffiliated voter. If you want to be affiliated, come into the courthouse and get registered as a Republican or a Democrat. This is what I was told in the training, and so I think that's part of the reason we have this great growth of unaffiliated voters.
Could be.
Is that true?
Come on.
So, Chris was right.
You gotta come to the microphone, Kelly.
Thanks, Kelly.
So Chris was right. When you go to your driver's license, they are supposed to ask you, do you want to affiliate one way or the other? If they do not want to affiliate or they don't answer, then they put a card automatically affiliated. If she gets those, whether they're affiliated or unaffiliated, she sends a letter out saying, you've got your registration, they registered as unaffiliated or Republican or Democrat, is that the way you wish? Then they have that opportunity for the turn. So that's how I was told during training. So I told they.
I'm telling you what the law is. And
What
the
the law
law requires that at the DMV, the driver must be offered an opportunity to affiliate. And if they choose not to affiliate, then it's listed as unaffiliated in the process. But I need to say one more thing.
Go up there, Mike.
When the driver signs, there's a sign on the pad. We're very proud of this because we think this is another way to tell voters what's happening. Your signature will be used for your voter registration, is what the sign says when you sign on the pad for your driver's license. I'm not sure that anyone doesn't know that their driver information is being used for their voter registration.
It would be interesting to know how many come in, when they send that so-and-so registered, to get their driver's license. It would be interesting to know how it comes in. I know it comes in by computer. It'd be interesting if it all just was all unaffiliated. It just would be interesting to me.
Well, you can actually go to our website and you can see we publish every month an Excel spreadsheet that shows where the voter registrations for every county came from. DMV, online, OLVR, online voter registration, or voter registration drives. It's coloradosos.gov. And every month, we publish our voter registration statistics from our score system. DMV provides to us the information that we then input into score, which we send to Kelly, and Kelly's team manages. The DMV system is separate from the score system.
That's what I figured, so
Every
where do I
night,
get that?
every
Where do I
night.
get that in?
From
From the
DMV,
Yeah.
you can't. There is a federal law, it's the Driver's License Privacy Protection Act, that prohibits them from disclosing driver's license information.
Thank you.
Okay, her second question on this is what forms of ID, it was addressed a little earlier, but if you could tell us again what forms of ID are presented to get a driver's license.
Right. So, I want to make the distinction between the ID list for voting and the ID list for driver's license. The driver's license ID, birth certificate, passport, naturalization, military ID, and ID from another state that also has citizenship verification. So another state's real ID. So one more. I don't think there's naturalization. Yeah, that's it. All of those forms of identification will show whether or not a person, you can't have a birth certificate from Paris, France. It's going to prove that that person is not a natural born citizen. If they then have a naturalization paper, they then can prove that they are citizens. But if they don't have two forms of identification that demonstrate citizenship, they don't get a driver's license that indicates they are a citizen. Non-citizens in Colorado do get driver's licenses. But that driver's license is different. There's a notation as to the nature of the driver's license.
I recall when the Secretary of State sent out a whole bunch of, like, in the 30,000 range of driver's licenses in the wrong color to illegal aliens and asked them to kindly return them.
Yeah, are you referring to what I know of as the 30,000 EBU postcard?
Yeah.
Okay,
I have no idea what that is.
Well, I think that's the story that has gotten garbled that you've heard.
No, this was on the news several years ago.
And it gets repeated every year. I'm very familiar with it because I'm just the guy in charge of it.
Oops.
No, not oops. As part of our effort to register Coloradans, we sent a postcard to 50,000 unregistered people. We attempted to remove the people that DMV said were non-citizens. DMV's data and our data didn't match. It was a postcard encouraging them to register. Actually, I can tell you specifically what happened. DMV treated an individual who has two surnames, Lopez Garcia, Rivera Gonzalez, two surnames as having a middle name and a last name. And as a result, they didn't match our system. We didn't recognize that they were non-citizens, and we sent 30,000 postcards to them. The postcards were to encourage them to register the vote. They were not registrations. Ma'am, I was there. I did this. I am telling you the truth.
You're telling me about postcards. I'm telling you about.
Didn't happen. There are no registrations because what we did with those 30,000 postcards, we knew who we sent them to. We went back and we watched to see, did any of those people register to vote and did they vote? One person. Guess what? They were naturalized in between. They got their citizenship and they voted legally. In the United States, if you naturalize, you are entitled to vote. And just because the DMV is wrong and thinks you are not a citizen, and you become a citizen, and you are guaranteed the right to vote, we are not going to take that away from you. Here's what the DMV says on a driver's license for a non-citizen. Not valid for federal identification, voting, or public benefit purposes. That is written onto the driver's license for non-citizens.
Okay, now let's keep going. I want to make another quick statement. Nobody here, look at the 99% turnout we get on voting, right? Not Republican only. Get it? And so that's for everybody.
Yeah.
And we want to give everybody an opportunity to talk.
Sure.
And so we have a follow-up question on that. And by the way, we're not challenging, nobody's ever accused Kelly of not being able to run a perfect process. It's the hardware and the other things that are the issue here. And you'll get that in a flavor.
Can I just suggest?
Yes.
The hardware has paper. Has
I know,
anyone
I get
ever
it.
gone and looked at the paper?
You understand.
No, this is important.
No, it
isn't important that you vote on paper?
I'm trying to just point out the process.
No.
Wait a minute. Let me get to the people that are asking these questions. That's who you need to answer to, because I'm listening. Okay?
Well, you're talking over it and not listening.
So let's.
I know there's a paper ballot printed. I get that, and a paper ballot is put in. We understand.
Yeah, we
But
keep
here,
it.
right, so let's get to this citizen's question.
Speak to all of us, please.
The question is,
Can we hear from Kevin, who is chairman
yes, and that's right. He asked me to ask this question, and that's what we're gonna do. Yeah, Alina Rominger has asked a question, and it's following up on exactly what we're discussing right now, and it's number one, how do you ensure voters are citizens and not just green card holders, and or young children with green card holders, and reaching the age to vote but not a citizen. DMV issues driver's license to non-citizens. So you can go ahead with that.
And so that's, I actually have what the Colorado identification for those that you're referring to, the picture of it right here. This is the two forms they have, and there is a black mark on there that your election judges and us can see very clearly that it says, exactly as it was read, not valid for federal identification, voting, or public benefits purposes. Every single one that the Colorado Department of Revenue issues has that indication. Another note I would say as well is the identification number on this type of an ID is vastly different than the one that you and I get on our driver's license. So when we enter that into the voter registration system score, when we enter that in and tap through, it automatically hits the Department of Revenue's site, and it comes back and says it's validated. That is meaning it is a valid Colorado U.S. citizen ID that they are submitting in purposes of identification for voting. If they try to use one that has this indication in the Department of Revenue system, it comes back invalid, and that process stops. Okay?
And this happens. And this also happens with the OOVR system. So you can go to the website and register to vote with a driver's license number. If you put a driver's license number for a non-citizen driver's license, the system will stop.
Good, thanks.
All right, question from Dan Fox. With the increase of unaffiliated voters, what is the future of bipartisan judges going to look like?
This is.
Oh, we're gonna have a battle over this one.
This is actually
It's gonna be very hard. Honestly, it's gonna be very difficult, because our law does require bipartisanship. So it is important that we have an equal Republican Democratic representation as the two major parties. But it is something that we are all in long conversations about, not only at the county level, but at the state level, and honestly across the nation.
And I would say that this is actually the cutting edge of policy issues around voting, is how to ensure that unaffiliated voters are full participants in the election process, because they are becoming the majority. And the parties have a vested interest in preventing them, in holding on to the authority that they currently have. And every legislative cycle, the legislators debate, we end up tossing measures that would allow for greater unaffiliated participation. So I would encourage folks who want unaffiliated voters to have more of a participation and say to twist the arm of your legislators, but to not be as self-interested in their party's authority and more interested in the people's ability to participate.
I would encourage people to do away with the open primary and affiliate.
That's it, you can do that.
Okay, Darla, Scholes is asking, who is our ballot prep outsourced to, and how will they be held accountable for the county unaffiliated voters receiving 2 Republican ballots for our current primary?
I know you're good at this.
So there has been a problem with some unaffiliated voters. It seems like anybody that their last name ends with LK that we received 2 Republican ballots. I've been in contact with the Secretary of State's office about this, and with our vendor, Liz Frederick Printing, our vendor. They will no longer be my vendor in November. I am searching for a vendor right now.
Can I add to this just to point out?
The mic up.
Sorry, thank you. We see across the state in various counties sporadically problems with smaller printer vendors. Generally, the smaller printers don't have a strong QA process. They end up with double insertions. And we're working to try to eliminate this, but it's a cost issue. The smaller printers charge less than the larger printers. There are something on the order of about 10 different printers that are used by counties across Colorado. The largest counties, what do you use, Kelly? Who do you use? I'm sorry, Kelly uses Frederick.
Yes.
Carly, who do you use?
Pro voting solutions.
Pro voting and solutions. The largest is Rundeck. And Rundeck does the printing and insertion. Rundeck's system is on the camera, it's computerized, and if there is one insertion that is wrong, you can find it. With Frederick, you're making a guess as to L to N? KLM, right. And the reason why Kelly's having to make a guess is because it's all about time. When was the error occurring? What was going through the printer's insertion at that moment when 2 Republicans ballots were inserted into the envelope? But you should explain. If you got 2 and you didn't get a Democratic ballot, what happened?
So the people that are coming in or they're calling with this problem, they are being told, if you do not wish to vote one of those Republican ballots, you can come in, we'll give you a new ballot packet that has both the Democrat and the Republican ballot.
But only turn in one.
But only turn in one. And Chris is absolutely right about the cost. It costs so much to run an election these days. And when I chose Frederick, we actually had done that. They, a year and a half ago, wouldn't take a county that spent less than 20,000 on letters, and I was at about 8,000. Frederick charges me about 8,000. If I change, I'm looking at about 15,000. I try to watch every penny in experience, and so that was a bad mistake on my part.
Follow-up? This is my question.
Go ahead.
Hey, get
You want
to
to
the
come
mic.
up to the mic?
I'm going to Kelly repeat my question. How are the printers vetted for this vote?
So she's asking how the printers are vetted. as far as me vetting them, when I can no longer use Runback, we actually, all the clerks, or the clerks that had to change, we had a list of, gosh, there was probably 30 vendors on there, and we just had to research them, and, talk to them, see what their cost was, and see what worked best for our county, and, that was how I did it.
Right, the Secretary of State does not have authority to license or regulate printers. We certainly, however, have information about printers that have had problems, and we share that information with the county clerks. There was a particular printer who had a series of problems in counties during the 23 coordinated election. We conveyed that information to counties, encourage counties to keep that in mind when they were selecting a printer. But we don't have the ability to say you can't use it.
Yeah, I've got to turn on the mic. Now you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Now, it's got a good question from Brian Thomas, and I want to congratulate him for his penmanship. I can read. As Sean Smith pointed out at the Rio Grande BOCC meeting on June the 4th, there is no ability for a local administrator to verify that the BIOS is a correct version. Has anyone addressed Mr. Smith's concern about the lack of assurance of operating system integrity or local control?
One second.
Yes.
And Brian's out there, raise your hand. There he is.
Thank you, Brian.
Look him in the eye.
You can, I mean, it's your document, but.
Okay.
Here you go. Now
So the trusted bill begins by, as Matt mentioned, so just terminology. When we install certified software onto the voting system equipment, whether it's ClearVouch or Dominion, we go through a process called the trusted bill. We take the software package that has come from the testing lab, and we confirm that that is the software that has been tested. We use what we call golden image. It is the only thing, and it's in our possession, and we run a hash value against it. We take that and we install it onto voting system equipment that has been locked. Completely formative defense white to zeros for computer folks. And we then install the BIOS and the operating system, and then the software. All of that takes time, which is why the trusted bill takes time. The point that I think Mr. Smith, Colonel Smith, is making is that the password access to the BIOS level of the machine is retained by the Secretary of State's office, not by the local clerk. And that is because the software comes from us, and we are not going to give the keys to that software to a local clerk. We retain the golden image of the software. It is, and to the extent that we ever needed to demonstrate, the software that was installed on Kelly's machine is the same software that was installed on Steve Schleicher's machine, that was installed on Carter's machine, unless you have, you got the same. Yeah. In any event, it's that software, and Colonel Smith's point is accurate in the sense that the local clerk doesn't have the password for the BIOS level of the machine. We regard that as a security risk, and we keep those passwords very tightly controlled. And each BIOS level password is unique to the county, and we retain those passwords at our office. And the Mesa County incident all began because someone was filming a trusted bill, looking over the shoulder of one of our engineers, and the video clip of the laptop screen showed the BIOS passwords. We knew when we saw that clip at Mr. Lindell's cyber symposium. No, it was actually before the cyber symposium. We knew that those passwords were the passwords for Mesa County. So that this video clip was from the trusted build in Mesa County because those passwords were unique. Meaning that the answer to the question is, we don't give local clerks the passwords to the BIOS level.
And I'll ask the question that is on his mind, that how do you guarantee they're protected? But you can't describe your process, because then that's given the key, but how do you generally ensure that nobody's jacking in your outfit?
How do we ensure that no one is jacking with the software?
You said you're gonna protect it yourself, and we're trusting you, but you're saying you, so there must be a group, a process, a program, somebody has part of the thing, whatever. Is there a way to guarantee to the citizens that you are protected?
The guarantee is the paper copy. Ultimately, the proof is in the paper. And Mrs. Ganal, who was running for governor in 22, has paid a lot of money to take a look at 70,000 pieces of paper in Douglas County to conduct copying, and Pearl Smith was part of her team. They have yet to report that the paper showed anything different than what was shown.
Right, passing down to the counties to verify.
You said earlier, the paper down in the county, way over 25%. That's not what he said. What did you say?
And county.
Yeah, so, or is that what they're doing, or are they just running it back to the machine?
I don't know what Mrs. Ganal is. Well, Mrs. Ganal is very wealthy, and she has the money to spend on, she hired, leased out 8 scanners, and she made copies of 70,000 images for $70,000. I don't know what she's doing with those images. I don't know if Colonel Smith is running tabulation against them. What I know is that they have not published any results. And as a result, they have not demonstrated that the paper was, or that the results don't match the paper. I'm telling you that I believe the audit, and the audit shows that the paper matches the tabulation.
Oh, okay, we'll leave it at that. It's on record. Thank you.
Good.
This is from Charlie Ellison. At June 4th Rio Grande BOCC meeting, Matt Crane indicated that straight ticket voting and other features unique to Texas was the primary reason Texas SDS, Charlie? Maybe Charlie.
Secretary of State.
Secretary of State, SOS, failed Dominion EMS twice. Is Mr. Crane claiming there were no material security vulnerabilities found?
No. None of us have ever said there's no vulnerabilities in the voting system. As Carly talked about earlier, there's the conditions of use. So there's the testing and certification process that identifies some, and then Colorado has gone above and beyond and put the system through additional vulnerability testing. And that is what informs those conditions for use. So those conditions for use are addressing specific vulnerabilities that are found through the testing process, both through certification and the penetration testing that is done. We have not, nor have we ever said these systems don't have vulnerabilities. But we have mitigations in place, and it's not just one piece of it, right? There's camera coverage required in our central count facilities. There's strict access control. There's testing we do before the election. There's auditing we do after the election. We've even had some counties who have run their ballot images. El Paso did this in 2020 through Clear Ballot and got the same results. Or they were the same outcomes, right? Montrose County invited people in and said, randomly choose 10 batches of 100. We'll get the task vote record for those batches, and we'll do a hand count to compare. Where there was an issue, it was in the hand count. We've had many other counties across the state. Elbert County did a complete hand recount of the presidential race after 2020. They found a 3-vote difference, and that came down to the way that judges interpreted ballots for adjudication. We've got multiple counties run their images now through other systems to verify the accuracy of the outcome. And each one of those, as Carlos said on an earlier slide, our systems since 2016 have been tested and audited over 2,000 times, and never once failed an audit or a test.
Can I follow up? Can I clarify on that question? Because the real question was about Texas. Yes, you're
Hold it close, Charlie.
the tone of your talking about Texas certification was because of particulars about how they got it. And so I'm not saying you're saying that there's no vulnerabilities. I'm saying, can you say there were no security vulnerabilities that were exposed or caused Secretary of State of Texas to reject and not certify?
No, I can't.
Careful.
Are you okay, sir?
Nice stance.
I can't say that. I wasn't involved in the testing certification process, but there are documents online on our website that speak to, they don't go into specifics, but security vulnerabilities. It was a different version of the software than what Colorado uses. That's an important distinction. And also a part of that, why they rejected it, at least in one of the times they did, was because the Dominion software did not handle straight ticket voting, which is allowed in Texas and not allowed here. So again, different versions. I would never say the vulnerabilities weren't serious, and I haven't seen what they identified. Those are internal reports, just like our reports are internal as well.
The Texas certification involves probably more than 4, but in 2017, Secretary Williams and his staff did the certification, and 4 vendors competed. Ironically, Texas chose the 2 vendors that did not prevail in Colorado. Colorado has chosen the 2 vendors, one of the 2 vendors that Texas did not certify. We have the mirror images of each other. In Colorado, we have clear ballot. In Texas, there's ESNS, HART. I'm not sure. In any event, the major reasons for either company not meeting the certifications have to do with the voting system and what Matt was referring to. Texas requires that a voting system allow for straight party voting, that you punch the Republican ballot and all of your votes are Republican. Colorado prohibits straight party voting. And this and other things were the reasons why Secretary Williams' staff certified or selected Dominion and Clear Ballot and did not select the vendors that Texas has selected.
I have a follow-up question. My name is Jason White.
Come up.
I want to give a little bit of a background so that you have some foundation of where I'm coming from. So I used to be a special agent for the Air Force Office of Special
State your name
Investigation,
again.
Jason White. And what it comes down to is trust and belief. Trust in the system, okay? You guys are saying that these are secured systems. There's vulnerabilities that are being brought out. We're trying to secure these. I'm 14 years out of the intelligence system. Okay, I'm giving you history. Things have advanced since then. So the security systems that are put in place, can you 100% guarantee that nobody has the ability to adjust or get into the systems? Because I'm trying to follow the line in my brain. So Kelly, you do a system, you do a checks and balances. You put a ballot in and it checks out on the other side. Okay, on election night, you put out the ballot in, it goes up through an electronic system, correct, to the state. Okay, where does it go? To Kelly. And then where do you send it to give the results up to the state?
Different system.
So it goes into a different system. I'm trying to follow, so it goes into a system. What system? What system? Yep.
Get over by the mic.
We're gonna go back and forth real quick. I'm gonna follow this.
No, if you want to cross-examine, this is not what we signed up for.
No.
So we can't cross-examine.
Just tell them the system.
Okay.
So, I'll answer.
This is, okay.
So,
The premise of your question is wrong.
so the ballots go in to the Dominion.
Yep.
They're scanned in, at 7 PM, not before. We tally those. All those. Then they are, given to me. There's a summary report on it. There's, those, votes are put on a secure jump drive. That is uploaded on a totally separate computer to the state. I check all those numbers are uploaded. I check it with my report, make sure they all match.
Yep. Agreed. Okay, and then where does that information go?
I'm dying because there are premises that are wrong.
Hang on. So,
No, you're right on.
no, actually, it's not true.
Explain it.
I will, I'm happy to. So she will, when Kelly takes the results on a thumb drive, on a clean thumb drive, she puts it in a separate server that uploads into the election night reporting system, which, what I mentioned before, aggregates unofficial results. Nothing about that reporting system is involved in the certification. Kelly still has all the ballots, she still has all the counts from the voting system. Nothing in that ENR system, all it is a display of results. That's it, of unofficial results. If there's no access to the ballots, there's no access to the voting system. So I think you're thinking that there's some kind of talking and that gets struck, the results change there. No.
You can guarantee that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, hold up.
Why does that?
Hold up. Hold up.
News media?
Jay, hey.
And voters, as we talked about.
Don't
Hold up.
one question at a time, he can ask it.
We're not doing this. Okay?
Records.
No. Keep it down, or I'll ask you to leave. Is that clear?
You can't do that.
I can do that.
You're impossible.
Okay, would you like to leave? Right now, sir?
Yeah?
Yes,
He's talking to me.
I am talking to you. Mr. Frank?
We can't ask questions.
No. Mr. Frank, would you like to leave now?
No,
You will either be quiet, or I'll ask you to leave, or be escorted out.
got a question.
Is that clear? I ask you a question, now you may respond.
Wow, you and you never responded?
Okay. Are you gonna be quiet, or am I gonna ask you to leave?
I've got a question from him, but
No.
I'm not arguing.
I'm not going there, Bill. All right, Steve Rorick asked a question. Why are the machines hooked up to the internet? And the main selling point was that they would not be hooked up to the internet.
I think we have repeatedly said this evening that they are not connected to the internet. They are what is referred to as air-gapped. We do check during the logic and accuracy. The portion of the system that Kelly has, which is version 5.17, is not the same that Mesa County had during their breach. So that is a distinction that you need to understand. She does have a different system. I have a different version. I have upgraded. She has an upgraded system. So the system that we are operating does not have those wireless capabilities such as the prior system did. We do actually check during the logic and accuracy testing of the pre and public that all vulnerabilities are maintained and controlled. This is an air-gapped system. I'm sure Kelly has it just like I do. You can literally get on your hands and knees, and I've had people do this and follow my wires from the server that is collecting the images and the votes to the scanners, and you can see that they are not connected to anything except for power. That is how everything is connected, and that's how we can tell you with certainty that the internet connections, one, she doesn't have that, and most of the counties no longer even have that version. That version also was not able to do that. The paper I handed that gentleman back there shows and proves to you how we went through and verified that the internet wireless capabilities were disabled. Those were the steps we did prior to every single election. So that is how we can stand up here with 100% certainty, with our testing, with our verification, that they are not connected to the internet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does that include Bluetooth?
Yes.
Okay.
That is
and
correct.
then air
But we're
gap
gonna go
is-
to the chairs.
Air gap is
Okay.
in,
Kevin.
Go ahead, Bill.
Kevin, can I follow up on that question, sir?
Let's finish getting through these questions before. Thank you. Thank you for asking those, sir.
Okay, I have one here, but I think it's been answered, and I'll ask the next one, but Mary Schultz, are you there still, here? Mary? It had been asked, and she's not here. She's not here, so the question she asked were how the technology, how to verify and clarify. Please explain unqualified voter, that kind of thing. I think you've gone through that. So why, for the record, Mary's question was answered. So I do have one from Harold Frank, and I'm going to read it. I'm going to congratulate him for his penmanship too, so I can read it. So he says, Matt Crane's wife worked for over 10 years for Dominion. How do you think we could possibly get a fair and nonpartisan opinion on anything here? Why? That was part of it, and then the rest is, so why is there no hand count before the ballot exits the Dominion machine? I think there's part of that already. And what are you afraid of given that? So that's Harold's question.
Okay. Suggest that I want to suggest there are a few things to be afraid of with hand count. It takes a while. Caution work, despite what folks may think. And in the vacuum of information on election night and into the next day and into the next day, when you do not have results, you will have all kinds of people storming the office of Mrs. Campbell. You will have what happened in Maricopa County, where a sheriff had a fortified Maricopa County Clerk's Office central tabulation. Hand counting takes too long. And in the absence of information, bad faith actors will fill that vacuum with whatever they want to say, which will stir people up. We think that it is better to have unofficial, uncertified, incomplete results on election night that are from a different system than to have no information. And having published the ENR, election night reporting, information, we then get the certified results after 8 days, with all that, after the canvass has occurred, after the audit has occurred. And interestingly, those numbers, which are different, coming from a different system, are the same as what was coming through the ENR system. So the bottom line is, we think there's a lot to be afraid of from hand counting. And one of the biggest reasons why you have a lot to be afraid of is it's the law. You are not permitted to conduct an election using hand-counted ballots. That's just the law. The General Assembly has passed it. You can speak to your legislators and try to change it, but I'm required to follow the law, as are you. And you are required, incredibly required, to tabulate votes with a machine. That's the law.
I might ask a follow-up on that myself if I could. So if after the election is certified,
yes,
then they are allowed to do a hand counting if they so desire.
If they so desire, and we would, in fact, encourage if that is what you would like to do. Again, it won't be a count that could change the certified results, because the law says only machine counted can be certified. But you could have a hand count, and that's in fact what Elbert County did. was it when Clerk Schroeder was there? Clerk Schroeder, got volunteers, and because it wasn't official, and because it wasn't part of the election process, he could use volunteers who weren't being paid. But I am honestly I'm sorry?
I'll just make one more.
Okay, I'm serious. You can't have unpaid volunteers work on your election. All kinds of laws.
I just want to clarify a little bit that that's a different type of hand count than what people are encouraging to have. That hand count, you are hand counting to an already known result. So you have to understand that distinction between a raw hand count, which is what you do when you don't know the outcome, versus an after-election hand count, which you are then doing to verify what is already done. So please make sure and understand that that is a little bit of a difference, and to be careful when you are saying hand count and make that that differentiation so that it is known that we are doing a hand count already with no results.
That was just found.
Could the question answer is address the entire
So-
audience rather than one person, please?
They are actually addressing the commissioners, and we have the sound system here for you guys to be able to hear what they are saying.
So there's an need for me to be here.
Okay.
I believe in Elbert County, Clerk Schroeder counted just the presidential race. Depending on how many ballot measures get enough signatures, including the Kent Theory measure for changing the whole way we vote, there are likely to be 20 to 25 ballot measures on the November ballot. Kelly, I'm sorry to tell you that you're going to end up with at least 2 cards. So you will have all the races and then all of the ballot measures. And there probably would be something on the order of 40 contests that would have to be counted. You have, I think, 4,500 active registered voters. If you get close to good turnout, let's just call it 4,000, 4,000 ballots, 40 contests, 4,000 ballots. That's 80,000, no, 160,000, if I'm doing the math in my head right. Contests that have to be counted by 2 people. And then they have to confirm with another person that counts. So in a hand count process, you have to have 3 people who are looking at the ballot. That's a lot of people, that's a lot of time, and all those people have to be paid.
16,000.
4,000 times. I'm a lawyer, so.
That is an extra 0.
Fine, I don't do math in my head.
Okay, thank you for that.
I have a spreadsheet too.
My first question was never answered.
James Gilbert, this is for the Deputy SOS. RLA randomization generator is separate system from vote tabulation with no crosstalk, correct?
Correct. There is no, it's a separate piece of software.
And then Clerk Carly, given all.
Can I add on to that? The randomization is created after the cast vote record is solidified. So what is happening with Kelly is she's tabulating and she's getting all of the ballots in, and we get to a point where the cast vote record, the record of every vote that has been cast, which is anonymous, but it's traceable, is fixed. We then select the random seed. So if we were playing games with the random seed to go pick certain ballots, we need to have the random seed generated before the cast vote record was solidified. And that is not how we do it. That's right.
He's got one question here for Clerk Carly. Would you want to read this? Sure. Since,
You can't read it.
Penmanship isn't to the
I'll
quality.
admit it.
Yes, Carly, given that all the conditions of use of seals for security, is it not true that any manipulation of the optical scanning device data, other than during adjudication, must be due to human malicious intent and breach of security, or an unauthorized breach of security?
So if a seal is broke and the election judge's fine on the seal is broke, that machine is now taken out of the ability to be used during it. And so the data on the system, so the logs that Matt mentioned earlier, those are pretty much essentially key loggers. So every single key on that keyboard that is entered and pressed is tracked. So we would have the ability for the Secretary of State and our sheriffs and DAs and whoever other law enforcement that gets involved with the investigation would be able to then look to see that it was this specific person. So an election judge and election staff has unique usernames and passwords. You can't share them. You have to log in with your own credentials. So we would be able to see this election judge went in, typed this, and we would be able to then identify. However, again, with the checks and balances, with the DNR process, video surveillance, and our daily reconciliation, it would be found, and again, we would be able to rectify it.
One caveat to that, the far more likely scenario, rather than some kind of malicious intrusion, is like what happened in Antrim County. There was an issue with the definition files, and that caused the data to go into different buckets for different candidates. So that's the far more likely outcome, and unfortunately that happens all too much. But that's the far more likely scenario.
Just real quick, the point was I was trying to address the issue of changing ballots on machines with a pen in the back of that would be picked up by cameras. So as the ballot comes, as the envelope comes in, the bipartisan team, after the ballot signatures are verified,
so is it gonna be like a hard out of this meeting, or are we just gonna go until like 11? Because I think we were talking about, I mean, 8:30 was when we ended the last one.
Two more questions and we'll go.
all of the ballots are dashed.
Well, then you're gonna, I mean, you're gonna have to make that clear, because the audience is gonna wanna, go crazy.
Tamper with the paper ballot, we would see it on video, but there are lots of people around. And this part of the process is watching. Watching is a technical legal term here. Each party is entitled to designate a watcher in the central count facility. They are not allowed to mess around with anything other than watch. But they would get to see somebody who tried to tamper with the paper.
Speak into the mic, please.
And in the back.
Is that what you were talking about?
Basically, my point was that given all the security, et cetera, that's all involved and whatnot, it would have to take a person directly to interfere with the data on the machines. You can't get at it any other way.
That part, yes, I agree with that. The machines are air gapped, so you have to have physical contact with the machine in order to tamper with the machine. It's the reason why we were so concerned about what Peters was doing in Mason County. And it's also the reason why there's a law that prohibits in counties above a certain size any elected official from touching those machines. Don't get angry. Sorry. Anyway, there is a law that prohibits elected officials from touching voting system equipment above a certain size. Custer County is not one of those, so be fine, have at it. touch the machines. Anyway.
Okay, we're starting to run long. We're gonna each go through two more questions and then we're gonna probably cap this up. So Bill, you wanna go to your next one?
Do I have one?
I can do one now.
Do it in order, I then.
All righty. So referring back to the Mesa County report number 3, which found that the Dominion voting systems created unauthorized databases and deleted election records. Has the Secretary of State or Dominion ever explained these failures at best? Better yet, why would the Secretary of State's office take over a county clerk's office and perform a trusted build, then charge the clerk for performing a backup when federal law requires election records to be preserved for at least 22 months? That was from Joni Wilcox.
And that's, the federal requirement is 22 months, the Colorado requirement is 25 months.
Say it again, speak louder, because
the federal requirement for preservation of election records is 22 months. Colorado requires 25 months of preservation of election records. Clerk Peters has been charged by the Secretary of State. My office has no criminal jurisdiction. She's been charged by the district attorney in Mesa County. She's been charged with 12 counts, and those counts relate to the unauthorized, bringing in unauthorized people to access, touch, and make copies of the Dominion election management server, the hard drives of the server, both before and after the trusted build. She fabricated IDs. She turned off the video surveillance. She did this on Sunday night. She brought in folks from California to do all, in any event, the bottom line is the Secretary of State's office has no criminal jurisdiction. We have not charged Clerk Peters. We did take over the election management during the run-up in 21 to the coordinated election, and then we did so again in 22. Because Clerk Peters had demonstrated that she was unwilling to comply with the conditions of use for the system, and we could no longer, and first off, once we determined that there had been an unauthorized access to the election management system, we could not know whether malicious code had been installed. We didn't know what had been done because the video had been turned off. As a result, we decommissioned all of Mesa County's machines. We had Dominion provide new machines that were recertified and reinstalled to run the election in 21 under Secretary Williams' supervision. Clerk Peters then refused to certify that she would comply with the rules, the law, the conditions of use, and we went to the judge. In both instances, we went to the judge, a judge in Mesa County, and asked the judge to order that someone take over. And in both instances, a judge did, finding that Clerk Peters had violated the law, violated the rules, and violated the Secretary's orders. That's what happened.
Just coming back to the Mesa, I really would like to stress the assumptions of Mesa Report 3 are entirely incorrect. It was not an illegal, unauthorized database. A second database was created when they backed out adjudication because the staff made an error. You don't want to mix good data with bad, so it started a new database. And through the course of the election, no files that were required, no records, no files that were required for retention were deleted. During the course of the election, Mesa County in 2020 was backing up those files daily. Before the trusted build, they did another backup. All records that were required for retention under state and federal law were retained. So again, nothing illegal, no illegal databases. It was a mistake by Mesa County employees that caused what happened there in terms of adjudication. Nothing was deleted. all the files that are retained that are required for retention.
Secretary Williams, if my memory serves, did the same thing that other candidates, the Gorman did in that process. We ran the ballots through a clear ballot tabulation. So the 2020 election in Mesa County was counted 3 times. Once with Dominion, once with clear ballot, and then they did another. I think
After 2021.
after 21. In any event, at no moment in any of the series were any of the outcomes reversed.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a citizen, excuse me, that has a very unique penmanship in another language. So I'm going to ask him to come up here and read it, Dave Lutz. You had one question that hasn't been, I've seen all of your questions, looks like some of them have been addressed. Address your important one this time. Whatever you do back here.
Sir, excuse me, sir.
Don't get too close to that.
So, I asked this earlier from the floor, but how much does our voting system cost all in for Colorado? Then better, software, machines, updates, employees, IT department, etc. Paper ballots with an ID. And by the way, one other thing, we talk about the ballots opening the envelope. How much time is spent on verifying that signature? And one last question. What's the largest precinct we have? It's not, what's the largest precinct we have? It's not very hard to count ballots for each precinct. I got many more questions, but that's good.
You shouldn't have a precinct with more than 2,000 voters, because that's what it is. It's only the largest precinct.
So we have 3 precincts. They're all, they don't vary much. A third, and third. And they are all under 2,000.
But sir, we don't vote by precincts anymore. We vote by counties. Everyone in Custer County is permitted to vote in any precinct. We don't actually vote in precincts anymore because you either mail your ballot in, or you turn your ballot in, or you come into the BSPC. You have one BSPC. You have no precincts.
The point is, there's really not that large of an area where we can't count the ballots.
You have 4,000 ballots, and I did this already.
That's okay.
Yeah, I just confirmed. But the question about how much does it cost? We have a decentralized process where every county makes its own decision about which voting system vendor must tabulate. And
If you want to go back to
an estimate for the time, you did this already, wow.
I got a spreadsheet.
Yeah, so Carly has a spreadsheet here that calculates how much time would be necessary to hand count 4,000 ballots. It takes an average of 1.48 minutes to hand count. 2 contests, so this is not even relevant. It will take, this is your spreadsheet.
So just real quickly, so for, we have an average of 1.48 minutes to hand tally 2 contests, so 2 races on a ballot. That's how long it takes to hand count, so 1.48, okay? For 4,000 ballots, with an average pay of $15 an hour, it's $6,400, okay? Now, total hours needed per day to complete: within 2 days, 197 hours, 1 week, 79 hours, 2 weeks, 39 hours. Total people needed per day to complete: within 2 weeks, 28, 1 week, 11, 2 weeks, 6. Number of supervisors needed: 1 for every 20 staff, 2 days to complete, 2 for an additional $480. So that's the type of breakdown that we got. Now, if you add additional contests, you have to add additional minutes to how long it's going to take. It's not seconds, it's minutes that you have to go, and then that will continue to increase your cost in hours and length of time it takes.
I feel the
I'm a
need,
nerd, okay, I'm sorry.
I feel the need, however, to say, you're not allowed. State law prohibits you from using hand counting as your official means of calculating results. But to the question that is valid, how much are we spending for voting systems across the country or statewide? The trouble around this is that we, the Secretary of State's office, do not actually buy these machines. Your counties buy or lease. And they generally are leasing in the price range so how many, you have one server, you have 2 scanners, 3. One scanner, and how many ballot marking devices? 2. You're a very small county. In other counties, there will be, how many machines do you have?
Ballot marking devices, I have 127, I have 6 scanners, I have 2 EMS servers, and 1 backup server for each. Weld County, we buy outright, and so our initial cost was a little over 600,000, and then for our additional every year yearly cost, it's 40,000, in the 40 to 45,000 software licensing.
I could give you a ballpark, it would be a wild-ass guess, sorry. But I think that the Dominion hardware software license fees are going to be in the area of $5 million. That's just the software and the hardware, that's not the people to run the election. It's also not all the other costs. So in addition to the Dominion voting system, we also have election night reporting. That's software that we pay for. There is the open source for RMA. There are hardware requirements for disability access. In any event, elections are expensive, and it's the reason why Matt and Carly and all of us lobbied the General Assembly last year so that Secretary of State's office will begin in November paying 45% of the reimbursable costs of the election, the variable costs, not the fixed costs. We're not going to pay Kelly's salary, but we will pay for the election judges' salary at 45%. We estimate that cost in total is something like $18 million across the state between both counties and the state. And we're going to take 45% of that, and counties take 55%.
I would say I'd like to see you go ahead and pick up the local elections as they
Yeah.
Don't tempt me.
Be aware that the costs coming from the Secretary of State's office is coming from business fees. So what you are saying when you say the Secretary of State should pay for more costs, you're saying businesses should pay for more costs. The Secretary of State's office is a virtually self-funded agency. We fund ourselves from business fees. When you form a business, when you renew your business, when you file your BCC,
Can I ask a question? When you say, when he says that it's against the law not to pay, right?
against the law not to, you have to count using the machine.
So to pay election.
Oh, to pay election judges, it's federal and state wage and hour law.
I mean, we have
Yes, and some judges do. Yeah, they say, although.
So that is a law.
It's entirely up to you what you want to do with the money that you are going to get paid. She has to pay you, and then you can donate it back to the county if you want to. I don't.
Go ahead. Lucas, go ahead.
All right, I got another question here. This one's from Veronica Nicholson. Why are volunteers paid as election judges? Define volunteer. How much are they paid? Carly stated $1 and Chris stated $15.
And that has already been addressed. So my next question to you is,
Repeat that, because nobody heard it.
The question from the audience was, can you please define the word volunteer? And it's a fair point. These workers are workers who are being paid for their labor. They volunteer in the sense that they step forward. And they volunteer to do this work. But they are workers, and they must be paid for the labor.
Or like you said, donate it back.
Or donate it back.
They're still county employees.
Yeah, it's still county employment. And so no one has bothered to ask the county attorney about that yet. But my guess is that might come up at some point in the next few weeks to figure out exactly how that works. Because if we're volunteering, we should be getting paid. We don't have some sort of formalized arrangement. We probably should talk about that.
So I have no volunteer judges. I have no volunteer judges. In the past, I can count on a hand how many have actually volunteered their time. 10 years ago, when elections did happen in precincts and election judges worked one day on election day, that was a lot different. That's changed. It's like a job now. And so they do get paid. And
I've worked with things when not clocked in, and I've not clocked in, so.
I would also say that federal and state wage hour law has changed significantly in the last 15 years or so, and gotten a lot more strict in terms of what we do or don't do. So again,
Yes.
Kelly, we probably need to
Yes.
have a conversation at some point to make sure that we're all on the same page. I'm sorry, I can't make that this a county business.
Yeah,
This is more of a.
it's all good. Talk to human services. Human, HR.
Yeah,
Talk to
human
HR.
services.
It's all good.
They don't-
I'm following the law, I promise.
HR, yeah.
Okay, forgive me for, is this Anina Loringer? When you report an error in voting, example, hand count versus machine, is this absolute error or relative error? Because everyone on the floor should know the definition and difference between those two terms.
Not sure if I'm tracking the question. When we talk about discrepancy in the audit, what we are thinking of and what we're looking at is a bipartisan team that looked at the paper after certification and determined voter intent, that this voter intended to vote for President Trump and voted for President Trump. And the machine said it read that ballot to say that they were voting for President Biden. That would be a discrepancy. And in that hypothetical, we would want to know, how did that happen? And every time we have encountered discrepancies, not in Custer County, because Custer has never had a discrepancy, we have ascertained that it's the humans who are looking at the ballot who made the interpretation of the voter's intent. And they came out one way, and we disagree. We go and look at it. And every time there's been a discrepancy, the human has been the error, not the machine.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got two left. One's an easy one. Steve, Rory, can you remember what your question was?
I can.
Come on up and.
So I just want to try to draw the dots together here. So when you put your unofficial election results in, you take that from your machine to a jump drive and then report that. But then when you talk about an air gap between the internet, so with your official results, why don't you just have a jump drive and then report that as well? Why is that machine still hooked? Or am I missing something there?
I think if this doesn't answer your question, let me know. So the voting system tabulates the votes. Beginning at 7 p.m. on election night, Kelly will go in the USB and download a report of results.
Unofficial results.
The unofficial results, that's correct. And yeah, it's because there's still ballots to be counted. Okay? And up to, we count ballots up to 8 days after the election because of UOCAVA and our military notices. So Kelly will go with the USB, put the results, the unofficial results at that point in time, 7 o'clock or 7:01, when you download it, and then she'll take it to a different computer that is hooked to the internet that will upload the results to the election night reporting website. Now, before she does that, she uploads it, she can preview the results as it's come through. Okay, so it's not just like a blind plug, hit a button and go. She previews the results and makes sure that they match what's on the report from the voting system. Only at that point, when she's validated that the results match, will she hit publish. Then the results are published to the election night reporting website. And then, once they're published, counties will do another check to make sure that what is reporting on the election night reporting site reflects what is on the report they just uploaded. But at no time do results ever come, do votes or anything ever come. The ENR site does not tabulate votes. It aggregates, and so it puts them all together. It doesn't tabulate votes, and no data goes back from ENR to the voting system server.
And that USB, as soon as we connect that to a computer that has the internet, so as soon as we use that USB with that computer that's been connected to the internet, we cannot use it anymore. So it's a one-time use USB, and we do verify that it's a.
So can you please explain how the official path, when you verify that, what is different between why don't we use a USB to upload that? Why are we connected with the internet so that we have that interface that's something to be different than before? What's the difference there?
The official results are not what has been uploaded to ENR. They're what's taken off of the server after all those ballots have been tabulated. It generates a report that the canvas reviews and certifies as the official certified results from Custer County. Only 22 days after the canvas is later.
And then how is that? How after if the canvas is specified or validated, then how is that reported?
So, once the canvas is done, all of those are uploaded to the election reporting again, for the public and all that. Right, but the canvas board, once they look at everything, decide, you know, we had this many people vote, we had this many ballots cast, and those two numbers better match. Everybody signs off on it, and then I send that to Secretary of State's office. That's the official.
So there shouldn't be there's really no need for them to be hooked up to the internet at all. Everything is within the machine, and you're making the jump, right?
But if you, as a voter, you want to know on election night if your person won, and we weren't reporting that on ENR, we just had it in my office. And we used that. And the only way for you to get results was to either call or to come in my office to get results. The ENR, am I wrong in that? ENR is a information.
I understand that. What I'm saying is if the machine itself is a standalone unit, it can count the ballots, The machines are smart enough to do the work standalone. They don't need to be hooked.
They're not hooked.
They're not, they're never hooked.
Why are we talking about that it's not illegal for them to be hooked?
Well, that's two different things. You're respectively, so you're conflating two different issues.
Oh, that's what I'm trying to figure
Yeah,
out, exactly what's going on.
No, I understand. It's a great question, and happy to provide clarity for it. So these devices are certified. Some of them now you see more and more election offices moving away from devices that have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth components. But the devices that do have them are tested and certified knowing they're there. It's not illegal to have them present. There are some states, Alaska, Michigan used to, they may have stopped. I think Florida, they use the connectivity component on there to send results back after the polls have closed because of great distance. No, but that's what's important. In Colorado, we haven't got that. It's a best practice for a long time, so we disable that connectivity. So yes, components exist on some devices, but I think there are over 50 counties now that have moved to the new hardware that does not have that. But we disable that functionality here, so at no point, the voting system that Haley uses is not connected to the internet. Which is why it takes a which is why it takes a USB drive to get the results report from the voting system to go to another computer that is connected to the internet to upload to this results aggregation system.
I think that this is, thank you, gentlemen, too, I appreciate that. But I think this is something that we all, as concerned Americans here, want to know about. Is why do we even need that kind of connectivity in the first place? We know we don't. The machines are smart enough to do it on their own, and you can upload it. And that's where the concern of all the patrons in this whole, this whole country is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Not to defend you, but the Dominion business model was to take off-the-shelf components because they were less expensive. And the off-the-shelf Dell computer has Bluetooth in it. And the off-the-shelf Canon scanner has a Wi-Fi connection. The upgrades that we are now doing across 50, trying to get all 62 or the 60 of the counties. We're trying to have everybody upgrade to machines that no longer have any receivers, any Wi-Fi or Bluetooth receivers in them. 50 counties do now. So all of the machines now in those 50 counties have no reception, no Bluetooth, no Wi-Fi, no internet connectivity. And the only way they communicate is through printing out on paper or putting to a storage media.
One more.
Last one.
All right. This is from Lisa Frank. If we can't see the software or inside the machine because of proprietary software, how can we trust what you're telling us? Why don't we have our own software we can look at?
Again, Dominion's business model, they are actually cheaper, and they assert copyright ownership over their software. And at the end of the day, we have concluded that we do not need to look at the software to confirm the reliability of the count, because we do the audit of the paper, and we confirm the reliability of the outcome based on looking at the paper. Ultimately, the paper shows that the machines have counted accurately. You can have a hammer that looks god-awful, and it still pounds the nail. What do you care about? What the hammer looks like, or whether the nail's in the fence?
I should have clarified. Can county design their own software? Can a county, we have intelligent software creators, can a county design software and sell it to the county and give up that right to whatever you call it? And so that we could look at what's going on. Is that illegal?
So let me repeat for the audience, just to make sure. The question is whether it's illegal for the county to develop its own software and use that software for tabulating votes through an electromechanical system? The answer is no, if that software meets federal certification standards and meets the state certification standards, and that takes about 2 years. And the bottom line is, if there is an ingenious entrepreneur who wants to create a voting system that could compete and would be open source and have availability and manage to get through all the certification, and your commissioners decided that that was a good deal for the county, yes, you could do that. It just takes time, and I don't know how much it would cost.
I would like to say thank you guys for coming, for giving this, taking the time. I know you guys all have a long way home now as well. So don't go to sleep on the way. Watch for the yellow on the way down the hard scramble.
Thank you.
We did have one online, didn't we? We want to bring one online.
We made a hard stop.
That's okay.
So, but thank you very much. I appreciate you addressing all the questions here at the end as well. And I just would like to say thank you. Anything from you guys?
I'd like to say thanks too. Only comment I would have is systems can change, but our voters can change the processes. We can have an election night that we could do things with if it was the right thing to do. And in my mind, the most important thing is our right to vote today. And I'm still, to clarify my comment here, I'm still briefed in the intelligence community world. I'm current. And I know that air gapping doesn't mean a lot. I know that a system, and that's one of the reasons that the government, the U.S. government and military goes 5 tiers down. Anything made in China is not allowed. And period. Clear down to the 5th tier subcontract. I would think our vote is just as important as protecting the military movement, people in our nation as well. So I'm leery of the air gap. I know that a lot of the parts are in China, and a lot of the stuff is, software upgrades are done overseas and that kind of thing as well. So I appreciate your answers because they're honest and you gave us the full story in the big picture. But we're good with that and processes we can work on later. And this is good information for us to take back as commissioners. I'd like to thank you too.
Can I add that Dominion is in Texas?
I know where the headquarters is there.
Denver is the headquarters.
I know.
The machines are made in Texas.
I know, but the subcontracting parts are not.
You're right. Any chip is coming from
I know.
China.
I'm not going to get into it. I know more than you think. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Sir, thank you.
Yeah.